Hey, what's up? It's Cute What If, this side. Today we will be seeing, what if Deku becomes teaching assistant? Now before we move ahead with the fic, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for future what ifs like this. The next morning, you wake to see that you've received several text messages from your students. You know you really shouldn't be surprised, considering yesterday's events, but you are. You really didn't think so many of them would try to beat Aoyama at his own game. In addition to Aoyama, you received texts from Kaminari, Siro, Ishido, Kirishima, Mainta, Hagakure, and Takoyami. Your eyes widen in surprise when you see the last student's name. While you can understand the other 6 trying to compete with Aoyama, you were not expecting Takoyami, of all people, to participate. He seems too cool for this kind of thing. Surprisingly enough, his text and Aoyama's were the only ones to arrive at exactly midnight, with the others being a few minutes late. First, you read the blonde's message. As expected, he finds another way to compliment your appearance, while also including as many sparkly emojis as possible. Huffing in amusement, you then turn your attention to Takoyami's text. You can't deny that you're extremely curious about what he sent you. You've been on my mind all night long because you are an excellent teacher. All you can do is stare, completely dumbfounded. Once you realize you just received a compliment in the form of 2 bird puns, you lose it. For several minutes, you laugh hysterically, unable to control yourself. It doesn't help matters that so many bird emojis were used along with an actual winky face. Just the idea of Takoyami actually using emojis like those makes it so you can strongly breathe. This is too hilarious. After you finally calm down, you immediately come to a realization. There is no way that Takoyami sent this message. While you're all for people having surprising sides to them, you cannot imagine him ever sending a text like this to his teacher. That could only mean one thing. You grin. Dark Shadow. It definitely has to be Dark Shadow. I could easily see him doing this. I'll have to wait till homeroom to make sure, but I'm positive it's him. That's why, later on, when the students start coming in for homeroom, you keep an eye out for a certain Avon-headed student. When he finally arrives, you wait until he's in front of your desk before you call out to him. Good morning, Takoyami. Would you mind bringing out Dark Shadow real quick? I need to ask him something. Takoyami tilts his head, obviously confused, but before he can respond, his quirk comes out unprompted and grins. Good morning. Did you like my text? A wide grin forms on your face. I knew it was you. You hand him a shiny sticker. You and Aoyama were the only ones to send the message right at midnight. Considering how much yours made me laugh, I figure you deserve the prize this time. Nicely done, Dark Shadow. Dark Shadow crows in delight as he claims his prize. Meanwhile, Aoyama glumly hangs his head once he realizes he has been defeated. Ishido starts giggling. Are you saying Dark Shadow actually texted you like we did? When you nod, Xiaoji summons a mouth on one of his arms to ask, how did you know it was from Dark Shadow instead of from Takoyami? I'm assuming the quirk doesn't have a phone of his own. Takoyami rubs his forehead. He doesn't. He must have used my phone while I was asleep. He sighs in exasperation as he pulls out his phone and looks for the text. Once he actually reads it, his exasperation turns into mortification as his feathers ruffle upwards, reaching the highest height you've ever witnessed. While Takoyami is having an internal crisis, you answer Xiaoji's question. I figured Takoyami wasn't the type to use a lot of emojis when he texts. Plus, he doesn't seem like the kind of guy who would send bird puns to compliment someone. There's a long pause, and then, the majority of the class breaks out into hysterics. Kirishima, Siro, Kaminari, Ishido, and Uraraka are laughing so strong, they look like they can strongly breathe. Ida is trying to calm everyone down, but his efforts aren't successful since the corners of his lips keep tugging upwards despite him trying to keep a straight face. Students like Yayurazu, Kuda, and Midoriya are quietly giggling into their hands, hoping that will muffle the sounds they're making. Takoyami stares at Dark Shadow, who seems content just looking at his sticker, with despair. Why? Why are you like this? The quirk chirps happily as the ceiling lights reflect off his sticker, making it sparkle. Don't worry, Fumi. If you want, I'll wake you up next time so you can send her the message instead. Then, you can get your own sticker. That just makes the rest of the class laugh stronger. The only ones truly unaffected are Todoroki and Bakugo, the former watching everyone blankly while the latter just scowls at all the noise they're making. Hanging his head in defeat, Takoyami heads for his desk. At that time, the bell rings, and Aizawa walks into the room, successfully killing the laughter with just his presence alone. Truly impressive. Not long after homeroom starts, you get a message from Netsu, asking for you to move some files from his office to the file room. There are 2 stacks, so he recommends bringing along a student to help you out. When you show the message to Aizawa, the older man just sighs. Go ahead, take whoever you want. That results in you getting several hopeful looks aimed your way. Of course, no one would be opposed to getting to skip class, even if it's just for a short PRD of time. It's when your gaze falls on Bakugo that you get an idea. He's one of the few who doesn't seem interested in helping, and normally, you'd respect that and not force him. However, he's been in a bit of a foul mood since the end of the sports festival despite him coming in first. When you tried to congratulate him the other day, the hothead just scowled at you in response. Later on, you found out from Midoriya that the blonde was upset that Todoroki didn't use his fire during their match. Apparently, the idea of Todoroki going all out with the green-haired student, but not him, pissed Bakugo off. You've been meaning to make some time to talk with the blonde, so maybe this is the perfect opportunity to do so. Hey, Bakugo, would you mind helping me out? Everyone stares at you with wide eyes, including Bakugo. Even Aizawa appears surprised by your request. When you don't get an immediate reply, you frown in disappointment. Is that a no, considering his reaction? You expect him to refuse, but surprisingly enough, he doesn't. Scowling, Bakugo rises from his seat without a word, following after you when you head for the door. He remains silent even after entering the hallway. By the looks of it, the blonde has no intention of starting a conversation with you, not that you're surprised. So, you decide to initiate one instead. For someone who just won the sports festival, you sure haven't acted like it lately. Aren't you happy? You won just like you said you would. Bakugo scoffs as he shoves his hands into his pockets. How can I be happy when the final match was so half-assed? That half-and-half BSTRD didn't even use his fire once during our fight. There's no way I can be satisfied when he didn't even go all out. You clasp your hands behind your back as you tilt your head curiously. Why do you automatically assume he was purposefully holding back? His fight with Midoriya was the first time he actually used his fire in combat since he came to Yua, wasn't it? Don't you think there might be a reason for that? He averts his gaze at your question, subtly twitching as he does so. For some reason, you can't help but think there's something strange about that reaction. Before you can ponder on it, the hothead growls. So, what if he hates his left side? That doesn't change the fact that he used it against Deku. If he's able to use it against a weak nerd like him, he should have been using it from the start against me. He should have been fighting to win rather than worrying about his BSTRD father. It's at the mention of Endeavor that you remember Bakugo's absence during lunch when Midoriya and Todoroki were also gone. Your eyes slowly widen in realization. Bakugo, you overheard Todoroki's conversation with Midoriya during lunch that day, didn't you? The way his shoulders hunch as he purposely avoids making eye contact with you answers that question for you. While you really want to scold him for eavesdropping, you don't want to go off track with this conversation and risk messing everything up. Plus, you're basically guilty of doing the same thing, even though you didn't do it on purpose, so you simply sigh at this revelation. Bakugo, if you know Todoroki's situation, then you should be able to understand why Todoroki didn't use his fire. All these years, he's been rebelling against the power he hated more than anything. While Midoriya's words were able to get him to reconsider his way of thinking, you can't expect Todoroki to just fix his issues within the course of a few hours. He's only human. When Bakugo removes his hands from his pockets, you notice the tiny explosions that go off as he glowers at the space in front of him. That FC King Half-and-Half had the nerve to try to win the sports festival without using his full power. He ruined everything. No way can I recognize a victory after a pathetic match like that. Realizing you won't be getting anywhere with this topic, you decide to go a different route and ask a question you've been wanting to know the answer to for a while now. Hey, Bakugo, why did you decide to become a hero? His eyebrows furrow. Why the FCK are you asking me that? You shrug. I'm curious. Just humor me, will you? He rolls his eyes. Fine. It's because I want to be the best, strongest guy there is. Heroes never lose, and neither do I. I want everyone to see that I'm number one. Honestly, you're not surprised by his response. From the visions you had of Midoriya's childhood, you pretty much figured the hothead would say something along those lines. Still, you can't help but be astonished by how the two grew up idolizing the same hero, while developing such different views of heroism. You tilt your head. But why become a hero to do that? There are other careers where you can be the strongest, like being a professional fighter. If battling is all you're really interested in, wouldn't a job like that be more preferable? Bakugo comes to a stop before narrowing his eyes at you. What the FCK is that supposed to mean? Ignoring the crackling from his palms, you reply, you make it sound like being a pro hero is all about winning battles, but it's really not. There's more to it than just fighting villains. A dark scowl forms on his face as he glares at you. And what would you know about being a hero, huh? That comment surprisingly stings despite it being the truth. You're not a hero, so it makes sense that he wouldn't want to take criticism from you, of all people. Maybe you should have waited and just let one of the other teachers handle this matter. You give yourself a mental shake. No, I can't do that. They may be heroes, but they don't know Bakugo like I do. I know what he's like. I know his view on heroes won't change until someone talks to him, but no one has said anything despite his behavior at the sports festival. I need to do something while I have this opportunity. The corners of your lips dip downwards. You're right. I'm not a hero, but that doesn't mean I don't know what makes a hero. Everyone should know that. It's more surprising that you don't know what I'm trying to say here. Bakugo clenches his teeth as he seethes. What the FCK are you trying to get at? Despite his obvious anger, the blonde is doing a remarkable job of keeping his temper. As you figured, he won't be aggressive toward an adult unless they're his opponent or have done something to truly insult him. Your gaze meets his straight on. Heroes are there to help people. Sure, they fight villains, but it's not just for the hell of it. They do it because if they don't, those villains will hurt people who can't protect themselves. Heroes are the people with powers strong enough to help those who can't defend themselves. That's what you're signing up to do by coming here, Bakugo. His eyes widen when you grab one of his hands. Thankfully, he doesn't try to fight your grip, instead choosing to stare at you with obvious confusion. Holding his hand with both of yours, you ask, when was the last time this hand was used to help someone else? I know you've used it countless times to inflict damage, but what about to protect someone other than yourself? Bakugo avoids your gaze, scowling instead of answering. When he tries to pull away, you tightly squeeze his hand, making him pause. I know you respect All Might. You want to be number one like him someday, and there's nothing wrong with that. You remark, however, I just want you to realize that he didn't get to the top just by being the strongest. There's a reason that Endeavor can't ever hope to beat him. Do you know why? He opens his mouth to speak, and then immediately closes it with a huff before any words can escape. The blonde tightly clenches his teeth as he refuses to look at you. Realizing he's not going to reply, you continue. It's because All Might doesn't actually care about the number one title. He's a hero because he cares about other people. More than anything, he just wants to help others by using his power to protect them. All Might knows he has an amazing power, but rather than use it for his own sake, he uses it for others. He smiles all the time because he wants to reassure everyone. He wants them to feel safe when he's around. Releasing his hand, you resume your walk to the principal's office. I may not be a hero, but I, at least, am willing to use my quirk to help others in any way I can. That's why I'm here. Why are you here, Bakugo? He doesn't respond. After finishing Nedzu's task of moving the files out of his office, you and an eerily quiet Bakugo return to a classroom where you spend the rest of the PRD grading papers. When the bell rings, you follow Aizawa to the teacher's lounge where you help him sort through the internship applications that have been turned in. Upon seeing that Ida chose an agency in Hasu, you get an uncomfortable feeling in the pit of your stomach. Could you have misread the boy yesterday when you talked with him? Does he plan on going to Hasu for the same reasons he did in your vision? Noticing your worry, Aizawa tells you that he'll check with Ida to make sure he really is interested in this agency. If anyone can tell if the kid is lying, it'd be him. He'll also see if his older brother can find out what Ida's goals are. When you finish up with the applications, you decide to distract yourself by doing some more exploring around the building since you have some free time until lunch. That's how you eventually end up in the area where the third years have their classes. While this hadn't been your original goal when setting out, you admit you are curious about this floor since you've never visited it before. The only things you know about the third years are from what you read in those files back when you were trying to help Hagakure with her costume. After about 30 minutes of walking around, you pass by a supply closet and hear a strange sound, causing you to halt mid-step. Brows furrowed, you turn your head to look around in hopes of identifying the source of the sound. A few seconds later, you hear it again, coming from the supply closet. It sounded like a gasp. Curious, you reach for the doorknob and cautiously open the door, mindful of whatever may be inside. Your eyes widen in surprise when you see a person sitting inside with their arms wrapped around their knees. It's a student with dark blue hair and pointed ears. After a few seconds of going through your memory of the student files, you realize this is Amajiki Tamaki, a third year and member of the Big Three, which is the name given to U.S. top 3 students. The opening of the door immediately draws his attention. He stares at you with large, panicked eyes as his breath comes out as a weak wheeze. That's when you notice what's wrong with this situation. For some reason, it looks like Amajiki is having trouble breathing properly. At your arrival, his breathing picks up. With each passing second, it gets worse, and you realize what's happening. He's having a panic attack. Oh hell, what am I supposed to do? I don't have time to get help, but how can I help him when I have no experience with this kind of thing? Trying not to startle the poor boy further, you slowly kneel down, making sure to keep enough space between the two of you so he won't feel cornered. I'm sorry for surprising you. I had no idea someone was in here. I see you're having trouble with your breathing. Do you think you could try to take a few deep breaths? He shakily nods, averting his eyes away from you. Unfortunately, despite his attempts to regulate his breathing, it doesn't appear to be getting any better. You need to do something before the student causes himself to pass out. You reach for his shoulder, doing your best not to move too fast in case sudden movement will scare him and make the attack worse. Amajiki jumps at the contact, and now his eyes are moving all around the place, not staying on you for more than a second at a time. As you gently squeeze his shoulder, you ask, keeping your voice as soft and calm as you can, "Can you match my breathing? In and out. In and out. It's okay. You're okay. You can get through this. Just take it nice and easy. Take nice, deep breaths. And if my presence makes you uneasy, maybe close your eyes while you're breathing." Thankfully, it seems like your advice is working. Slowly but surely, Amajiki's breathing begins to calm, and his shaking starts to subside. Your hand remains on his shoulder the whole time, with you gently rubbing circles against his shirt with your thumb. His eyes are closed because of your earlier advice, and it doesn't look like he's interested in opening them anytime soon. When his breathing finally evens out, you release his shoulder after giving it one last squeeze. His eyes shoot open at the loss of contact, and the student looks you in the eyes for the first time since you arrived. They're the same color as his hair and a bit thinner than the average high school student. They're not big or expressive like the eyes of a lot of your students, but they're not bad, not at all. If you could somehow push past all the anxiety clouding his gaze, you think you'd find a special strength buried underneath all his worries. A warm smile forms on your lips. Much better. How are you feeling? Flushing, Amajiki quickly averts his eyes. He hesitates for several seconds before finally responding. "I'm all right now. Sorry for the trouble." His voice is incredibly soft. Whether it's like that naturally or because he's worn out from the panic attack, you're not sure. Either way, it's nice to listen to. You sigh with relief. "I'm glad you're okay. I've never dealt with a panic attack before, so I was worried I'd make things worse." Not wanting to crowd him, you scoot back and make yourself comfortable, leaning against the doorframe as you move into a seated position. You don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but what were you doing in here all by yourself? Did you come in here when the attack started? After a few seconds, he jerkily nods before burying his face into his knees. His new position causes his response to come out muffled. "They don't happen often, but when they do, I don't like to be around other people beside Mirio. He's doing work with his internship today, so I decided to hide here and wait it out alone." You blink in surprise, not expecting him to give you such a detailed response. Considering his anxious demeanor, you figured he wouldn't say very much. Maybe he's okay in one-on-one situations as long as he doesn't have to make prolonged eye contact. That's when you get the idea to move your gaze to the doorframe across from you rather than keep it on the boy. Lots of people get nervous when they feel someone's eyes on them, so you figure it's probably even worse for him. "Do you want to go see Recovery Girl?" you ask, rather than bother returning to class. "Maybe you'd feel better if you lie down for a little while." Out of the corner of your eye, you see Amajiki shake his head. "That's not necessary. Lunch will start soon, so I'll just rejoin classes after that." Several minutes pass in silence with you not knowing how to break it. Should you break it? Maybe he prefers the quiet. You wonder if it's okay for you to remain sitting here. While he doesn't appear bothered, that doesn't necessarily mean he isn't uncomfortable. He could be hiding his discomfort because he doesn't want to hurt your feelings. If you do leave, would he be relieved, or would he think you're ditching him? You're not used to dealing with guys like Amajiki, so you're not sure what the best approach is for this kind of situation. When you look out of the corner of your eye to check on him, you see the dark-haired student sending you subtle glances every few seconds as if he's checking to make sure you're still there. Is this a sign that he's okay with you being here, or is he waiting for you to leave so he can finally relax? Finally, after what feels like forever, Amajiki breaks the silence. "I don't recognize your face or your uniform." This time you fully turn your head to look at him, and he immediately averts his gaze, lightly biting his lip as does so. Realizing he's not going to ask the implied question outright, you decide to go ahead and provide the answers he's looking for. "My name's In. I'm a TA for Class 1A. I'm not a hero, but I was hired because of my quirk, which allows me to receive visions of the future. I've had some visions related to the students of that class, so the principal thought it was best for me to stay here just in case I could help." As he absorbs those words, Amajiki nods to show his understanding. You're surprised when his gaze meets yours again, even though the eye contact only lasts for a few seconds. "Amajiki Tamaki, Hero Course 3rd Year, and nice to meet you." Your expression softens as the corners of your mouth curve upwards. "It's nice to meet you too, Amajiki." A light blush colors his cheeks as he looks away. You can't tell if it's because you're smiling at him, or because of the eye contact that he's now flustered. You wonder if he's always like this with people he's just met. At that moment, the lunch bell rings, catching you by surprise. It's that time already. You must have been here longer than you originally thought. When you move to stand, you realize that Amajiki is still sitting. It doesn't look like he intends on moving anytime soon. You frown worriedly. Amajiki, do you plan on staying here during lunch? Aren't you hungry? He shakes his head, causing his bangs to cover more of his face. I'm not really in the mood to go where there are a lot of people right now. I'm not really hungry either. That's when you hear his stomach loudly growl, betraying his words. The third year immediately buries his face against his knees to hide his embarrassment. While a part of you wants to laugh, you refrain since you don't want to embarrass him further. Instead, you try to figure out how you can get him to eat without having to be around all the other students. Eventually, an idea comes to mind, making you grin. Quickly, you pull off your backpack and reach for the bento you made for yourself. Grabbing it, you move closer to Amajiki and set it down beside him. Here, I usually make a bento for my lunch. You can eat this and not have to worry about eating around other people. I've had others try out my cooking, so I promise it's good. He jerks his head up to stare at you with wide eyes. I can't take your lunch, you smile. You're not taking my lunch. I'm giving it to you. I can just go grab something else for myself. It's really no big deal, I promise. Rather than give him a chance to argue, you decide you should leave and give the dark-haired boy some time to himself. Just before you do, you get another idea that makes you pause. Amajiki watches you with obvious confusion as you dig through your bag to look for a sticker. You don't really know him all that well, but maybe it'll help cheer him up. The first sticker sheet that you pull out is the one covered in butterflies. You hesitate on giving him one of those, wondering if it's too girly. However, when you notice the way his gaze focuses on the stickers, you realize that's the most intense you've seen the dark-haired student look since you arrived. Maybe he likes butterflies. Thinking it won't hurt to try, you pull off one of the stickers and place it on his hand. There. I'm hoping your afternoon will be a lot more enjoyable compared to your morning. His eyes never leave the butterfly sticker, even as he speaks. Thank you. You grin at his reaction. You're welcome. Much to your surprise, when you move to leave, Amajiki slowly rises to his feet to follow after you. He keeps his eyes averted as he joins you in the hallway. Not many of my classmates eat lunch in the classroom, so I should be fine in there. Relieved that he won't stay in the closet during the rest of lunch, you smile. I am glad. Since Amajiki's classroom is on the way, you walk alongside him down the hallway as you start heading in the direction that will take you to the teacher's lounge. Unsurprisingly, Amajiki remains quiet the whole time. It's when he eventually comes to a stop before a door that you realize this is where you two will be parting ways. Pulling out a pen and some paper from your bag, you write down your phone number. He blinks in surprise when you hand it to him. Here. If you ever end up in a situation like that again, let me know, okay? You don't have to send me a typed message. Just send me an emoji. Like, a butterfly. If you send me a butterfly, I'll know you're hungry but don't want to go eat with the other students. I'll bring you something to eat so you won't have to skip lunch. Amajiki just stares at you, his surprise overpowering his usual nervousness. Why? I'm not even your student. You shrug. True, but that doesn't change the fact that as a TA, I have a responsibility to look out for the students here at UA, even if they're not in the class I'm directly involved with. Besides, what kind of person would I be if I just left you on your own? Your smile turns sheepish. Plus, I'm a bit of a busybody. I often find myself getting involved in things that have nothing to do with me because I like to help people. You don't have to take me up on my offer, but if another day like this happens when your friend isn't here, I'd be happy to do whatever I can to lend a hand. For several seconds, the third year hesitates, but then, he slowly nods his head, keeping his gaze on the piece of paper now in his hands. When he doesn't give a verbal reply, you decide it's time to head back to the teacher's lounge, so you start making your way down the hallway. Thank you, Sensei. His voice is quiet, so much so that you can barely hear it. Still, it does manage to reach your ears. A large grin forms on your lips as you turn to look at him from over your shoulder. You're welcome, Amajiki. That grin doesn't leave your face, even after you find your way off the third-year floor, and something tells you that it won't be fading anytime soon. At least, or so you thought. It's as you're walking back to the teacher's lounge that you remember that you need to do something about lunch since you handed yours over to Amajiki. I could go to the cafeteria. I've heard that Lunch Rush's food is amazing. You muse. I've always been tempted to try it, but since I started worrying about Aizawa's eating habits, I started making bentos for the two of us so he could eat without having to leave the teacher's lounge. Your eyebrows furrow. Wait. I'm supposed to be keeping a low profile, so wouldn't it be better if I didn't go into the cafeteria where so many students will be? I'm sure some of them will notice I'm not a hero and wonder why I'm here. I doubt they'll actually question me, but they might stare. That would be so awkward. Not wanting to risk receiving such attention, you decide that you'll just return to Heights Alliance long enough to make yourself a quick meal. Surely, Aizawa won't mind if you leave the building for just a little bit. First, you need to drop by the teacher's lounge to make sure the underground hero eats his lunch. Unsurprisingly, when you reach your destination, you see that he's asleep on the couch, meaning you have to wake him up. Since he's the only one here, you figure all the other teachers have already left for lunch. After you accomplish your mission, you tell Aizawa that you need to go to the dorm, so you can get some lunch. He raises his eyebrow in response. Are you saying you brought mine but forgot to bring your own? Rather than go into details about what happened with Amajiki, you simply tell him that you gave it to another student who was having a rough morning and didn't want to go to the cafeteria where so many people were. Thankfully, the older man doesn't press for details. Instead, he just sighs. You give him a confused look when he grabs his lunch and moves toward the door. Where are you going? Aizawa rolls his eyes. With you. I would tell you to just take my bento, but I know you won't. I'm coming along to make sure you don't find a way to get yourself into trouble. Knowing you, anything could happen. You follow after him with a huff. I'm not that much of a trouble magnet. Sure. Just keep telling yourself that. Aizawa drawls. Not long after you leave the teacher's lounge and start heading for Heights Alliance, your cell phone begins to ring. When you check to see who the call is from, you're surprised to see it's from a number you don't recognize. You give the device a puzzled look. The only person not in my contact list that has my number is Amajiki, but he seems more like the type who texts rather than calls. Still, I guess I better make sure, just in case. Mindful of Aizawa's eyes on you, you answer the call. Hello? Unsen? That is definitely not Amajiki's voice. However, you do recognize it. Ida-san, even though you've only met with Ingenium once, it's easy for you to remember his voice since it's similar to his brother's in a way, just a tad deeper. Yes, I'm sorry for calling so suddenly, and for taking so long to contact you. I wanted to call when no one was around since we're trying to keep your involvement in the recent stain incident a secret. Before you respond, the Turbo Hero continues. I wanted to apologize to you. Even though you went out of your way to warn me, I still got myself into trouble and caused you harm in the process. Even though the principal told me that the paralysis didn't transfer to you, I still asked him for your number, so I could speak with you personally. How are you feeling? You find yourself smiling when you hear the genuine concern in his voice. I'm all right. I'm fully recovered now that the 2-day time limit of my drawback has passed. What about you? Are your injuries doing better? Yes, the hospital staff took care of the worst of them. I'm mainly on leave since my agency wanted me to take a break. Honestly, I think they're worried the hero killer would want another go at me since his victims usually never survive. From what you've seen of the hero killer, you don't think it's likely he'll go after Tensei again since he didn't even when the Turbo Hero survived in your vision. Still, you can't blame the other heroes for being cautious. Tensei draws you out of your thoughts when he begins to talk again. For some reason, there's something different about his tone this time. Besides checking on you, I wanted to speak with you, so I could apologize about what happened. It's my fault that Stain still managed to attack me despite your warning. That's when you realize what's so odd about his voice. It's because it sounds like he feels guilty about something. You come to an abrupt stop, dimly aware of Aizawa doing the same. What do you mean? You can't blame yourself for what happened, Ida-san. It's not. His voice cuts you off. It is? Even though you advised me to stay away from the hero killer, I didn't. I still went looking for him. Your eyes grow large. Why? Why would you do something so dangerous? Is it because you were worried about my drawback? He releases a weary sigh. Yes and no. While I was concerned about my paralysis transferring to you, I was also worried about Stain escaping. I thought the best way to ensure everyone's safety was to make sure I managed to stop him during our encounter. I thought if I asked for enough help we could stop him before he got away. While it was a reckless plan, you can't deny that it makes sense. From a pro-hero's point of view, the best plan would obviously be to stop the villain rather than to just avoid him. Is that why his injuries didn't end up as severe as they were in the vision? Because he had backup. As if reading your mind, Tensei continues. The plan was for me to get his attention while my sidekicks would surround him. Thanks to you, we knew about his quirk, so he couldn't use that to surprise us. Unfortunately, we were still overpowered in the end. He managed to escape before more help could arrive. Wait. Stain overpowered all of them. If that's the case, why are Tensei's injuries still better than from when he was on his own? Your brow furrows. How were you able to avoid getting more serious injuries? Stain's not the type to just leave things half done. At your question, there's a strangely long pause. Before you can check to see if you lost the call, the turbo hero finally replies, I'm not really sure. It seemed at first that he was trying to kill me, but then suddenly, it was like he changed his mind. Even though he had the opportunity to do more damage, he left not long after he subdued us. For some reason, his response gives you an uneasy feeling in the pit of your stomach. Something seems off. Before you can try to probe further, Tensei tells you he has to go, so you both exchange goodbyes before ending the call. For several seconds, you just stare at the dark screen of your phone, frowning as you try to make sense of what's bothering you. Come on. We still need to go to the dorm, so you can get something to eat. Aizawa's voices makes you jolt in surprise. You had forgotten he was with you. Oh yeah. The rest of the trip to the dorm is silent. When you arrive, you immediately head for the kitchen to prepare a quick meal while Aizawa sits down in the dining area to eat. Not long after you join him, he asks, "So, what's got you so bothered? What did Ingenium say?" Hoping the underground hero can help you figure your feelings out, you explain why Tensei called and the whole situation with his fight with Stain. By the time you finish, he's tiredly rubbing his eyes. I had a feeling something like this would happen. You can't just tell a hero like him to stay away from trouble no matter how dangerous it will be. I can't believe he survived just because Stain decided to change his mind. You bite your lip. That's what's bothering me. Why did Stain change his mind? Is it because he discovered that Ingenium was the type of hero he doesn't want to kill? He only goes after those he sees as being unfit for heroics, right? He scratches his chin. Yeah, that theory does make sense, but if that's the case, why didn't he spare Ingenium in your vision? What's so different about the battle that actually happened that Stain would so suddenly change his mind? That's the thing you can't figure out. From what you've seen online, Stain doesn't mindlessly kill. There are certain types of heroes he hates, and he only goes after them. For reasons only known to him, the hero killer was initially fine with going after Ingenium, but something happened that changed his line of thinking. What was it? According to Tensei, the only thing that really changed was he had reinforcements with him, and he knew what to expect. It couldn't be because there were too many heroes to fight since Stain defeated them without any problems. It's at that moment you get an idea. What if it wasn't something that was done, but instead something that was said? Did Stain possibly hear something that made him change his mind? But if anything strange was said, Ingenium would bring it up, right? You're wondering if something was said to Stain since nothing physically happened that should make him change his mind. At your surprised look, Aizawa rolls his eyes. You're really easy to read. Plus, my thoughts are pretty much the same. It's possible there's something Ingenium isn't telling us. The corners of your lips tug downwards. I don't want to think he's lying to us, though. I mean, why would he do something like that? As he finishes off the rest of his food, he replies, rather than lying, I'd say he can't completely remember what happened that day. According to the principal, Ingenium received a head injury, which jumbled up some of his memories. So, it's likely his recount of what happened doesn't cover the whole story. The sidekicks were unconscious by the time reinforcements came, so it's possible something happened in between Stain knocking them out and help arriving. Your eyes widen with realization. That's why he sounded so unsure when I asked why Stain spared him. He can't really remember what happened at the end. Aizawa nods before pulling out his eye drops. Unfortunately, unless Ingenium suddenly remembers, it's unlikely that we'll find out what exactly caused Stain to leave. At this point, the only one who knows is the hero killer, and I doubt we'll find out from him. The conversation ends there, leaving you feeling even more worried than before. Even after lunch ends and you return to the teacher's lounge, you can't stop thinking about the hero killer. You know it's a silly thing to worry about. Why make such a big deal over the fact that Ingenium was spared? You should be celebrating, not feeling anxious. You were able to prevent the Turbo Hero's paralysis, and as a result, made sure his brother had no reason to get revenge. Everything should be fine from here on out. So, then why does this feel like the calm before the storm? Thursday afternoon is pretty uneventful. You eventually manage to push away your worries about the hero killer situation thanks to Present Mike and Midnight distracting you with different conversations. Aizawa also helps by always making sure you have something to do. After the final bell rings, you head back to Heights Alliance with Uraraka and Todoroki. During this time, the brunette tells you about amusing things that happen throughout the day, with her classmate adding his own commentary every now and then. It's really funny listening to the pair because the way they each tell stories is so different. Uraraka always gets really into her explanations, showing a variety of emotions, while Todoroki's face is almost always blank and his tone always stays flat and even. Once you're all back at the dorm, the three of you spend a few hours working on homework together. After the kids finish their assignments, they help you prepare dinner, which turns out great. Not long after she finishes eating, Yuraraka gets a call from her parents, so she heads up to her room to take it. By this time, Todoroki has already finished his own food, but rather than go to his own room like you expect, he stays sitting at the table with you. Just as you're wondering what you should do to break the awkward silence that follows Yuraraka's absence, he asks, "Did something happen this morning with Bakugo?" You give him a surprised look. "You mean when we moved the files? We talked for a little bit, but nothing bad happened." Todoroki tilts his head as he watches you from across the table. He was pretty quiet for a while after that. Well, until Kaminari said something to anger him. Then, he started acting like he usually does. You didn't think your words had that big of an effect on him. You honestly expected him to just brush you off. It's not like he has any reason to listen to you after all. Propping your elbow on the table, you lean your cheek against your hand. I asked him why he wanted to be a hero. He and I have different views of heroes, so it's possible he was quiet because he was thinking about what I said. The stoic boy does a slow blink. I see. That wasn't what I was expecting. An amused smile forms on your lips. Were you thinking he lost his temper and got scolded for it? Pretty much. His words make you snort. While I admit he did get mad, Bakugo didn't lose his cool. I think it'd take a lot for him to do that around a teacher, even if they're just a ta like me. When Todoroki just hums in response, you decide to ask a question of your own. Since we're on the topic, I'm curious to see what your response would be. Why do you want to be a hero, Todoroki? At his confused look, you quickly add, what I mean by that is, I'd like to hear what your reason is for becoming a hero now. I know what Endeavor wanted, but I don't care about that. I want to hear what you want. Understanding quickly dawns his features, but it takes him a while to give you an answer. In the meantime, your student just stares at the table with furrowed eyebrows. He hesitates for a moment before finally saying, I'm not sure. At first, it was to spite my father. I wanted to surpass him without using my left side. Now, it's different. Now, I just want to prove myself. I want to support my mother and be someone she can be proud of. Todoroki frowns, looking down as he clenches and unclenches his left hand. Is that enough? Can that be a reason? Or is that too selfish? Smiling, you reach over to ruffle his hair, successfully bringing his gaze to you. He appears surprised by the action but doesn't move to push your hand away. It's not selfish. Everyone has their own reasons for becoming a hero. I think there's nothing wrong with wanting to prove yourself. Endeavor has a pretty big shadow, so I know it'll be strong to step out of it and make a name for yourself. Your expression softens as he watches you with rapt attention. There's also nothing wrong with wanting to help your mother and wanting her to be proud of you. I think it's wonderful. And you know what? I think you'll acquire more reasons to be a hero as you grow. For now, I think it's okay as long as you have something to strive for, so I think you'll do just fine. You move your hand from his head to his left hand, which is currently in a fist. You have an amazing quirk, Todoroki. You can do a lot of good with both your powers. With this hand, you'll be able to help so many people. You're gonna carve a bright future for yourself, I just know it. Your smile grows as his eyes widen. You'll be so bright no one will be able to look away. You'll be a great hero, Todoroki. I have no doubt about that. Just as you move to pull your hand back, you're stopped by his hand latching onto yours. You stare at the joined hands in surprise before looking back at your student. Because Todoroki is hanging his head, you can't get a good look at his face, but you know he's not upset. While his grip on you is strong, it's way too gentle for you to even consider him being mad. When he finally looks up, his expression steals your breath away. The corners of his mouth are pulled upwards into one of the kindest smiles you've ever seen. While it may not be large, it's still a sight to behold. Thank you, Sensei. You gently squeeze his hand as you return his smile. You're very welcome. After that conversation concludes, the two of you head for the kitchen to wash the dishes. While Yuraraka said she'd come back down to do hers after her call, you told her not to worry about it, and that you would take care of it for her. Much to your surprise, when you invite Todoroki to watch TV with you, he agrees. Somehow, you both end up watching Pokémon, a show you remember enjoying as a child. Apparently, the TV shows you enjoyed growing up are one of the few things you can actually recall. It ends up being a very enjoyable experience since your student gets surprisingly into the show, watching all the battles with interest. While you always enjoyed watching the show when you were little, you don't think you've ever had this much fun until now. It's nice to have someone to watch it with, really nice. The following morning, you are very surprised to wake up to a message from Hatsum in addition to the ones from your students. According to her text, she finished her first baby for you and wants you to give it a try. Apparently, it's ready to be picked up at the support studio. That's why, after you finish eating breakfast, you tell your Araka and Todoroki that you'll be leaving early and will meet them at the classroom. After doing that, you head for the support studio. When you later reach your destination, you knock on the door but receive no reply. Upon realizing that it's unlocked, you cautiously stick your head inside. While a part of you wonders if you should wait for Hatsum, the other part rationalizes that she'll probably head straight for class once she gets to school. It's not like she specifically said she'd be there to explain things to you. You walk inside the room, looking around in hopes of finding the support course student's new baby. That's when something on a nearby table catches your eye. There, you see a little note with the nickname Hatsum gave you on it. Beside it, you see what appears to be some kind of blue gun. The design reminds you of something, but you can't quite remember what. It's when you open the note she left you that you realize what it is. Your eyes grow wide with disbelief. She made me a water gun. Even though I was joking when I brought it up the last time we talked, she took me seriously. Oh man, how am I supposed to explain this to Aizawa-san? According to her note, it can shoot up to 50 feet away, and there's a nozzle that allows you to choose whether the water comes out hot or cold. It requires you to refill it like a normal water gun, but apparently, it can hold a good bit more than a regular water gun, even though it's only a little bit larger in size. She was kind enough to fill it up for you, so it's good to go. There's also a lot of other jargon that explains how exactly it works, but it's too early in the morning for your mind to be able to decipher this kind of content. Mechanical stuff usually goes over your head anyway, so it's probably best not to stress too much about it. Sighing, you grab the water gun and head to Class 1A's classroom, examining it as you walk. Not long after you start your trek, a familiar voice reaches your ears. Today's the day. I'm going to enter that heavenly realm that every man dreams of. I've been biding my time, waiting for the perfect moment when everyone's guard will be down, and now, the time has finally come. I can't wait for All Might's lesson. Raising an eyebrow, you look around the upcoming corner just in time to see Minta scurry off toward his classroom. Obviously, that muttering you just heard belonged to him. Great. Looks like Minta is up to no good again, and it hasn't even been a week since the sports festival. With a sigh, you shake your head as you walk toward the direction your student just headed. Looks like I'll have to keep a close eye on him today, especially when it comes time for All Might's class. I could scold him now, but he'll likely just play dumb. So, I'll have to wait until I either have a vision or catch him in the act. A few minutes later, you enter the 1A classroom, and the whole room goes quiet, much to your surprise. That surprise quickly turns to realization when you see that everyone is staring at the water gun that's still in your hand. Kaminari gives you a nervous look. Sensei? Why do you have a gun? Before you can try to explain yourself, Jiru rolls her eyes. It's a water gun, idiot. Can't you tell? Oh good. You're glad some people can tell you didn't just bring an armed weapon into a classroom. His shoulders slump with relief before he frowns at her. Hey, it's not like I have supervision like Xiaoji. How was I supposed to know? It looks like a gun from here. Eyes appear on the arm Xiaoji extends in your direction. I guess I could see some similarities, but it really does look more like a water gun. You can even see where it stores the water. Shiro exaggeratedly waves a hand in your direction. I think the more important question here is why Sensei even has a water gun. This isn't some new type of lesson plan, is it? You snort at the question. Well, Hatsum from the support department did make this for me as a tool to use for classroom management. Bakugo, who hasn't spoken to you since yesterday morning, gives you an incredulous look. So, what? You're gonna FC King shoot us if we do something wrong? Shrugging your shoulders, you grin at the sight of the many wary expressions on the students' faces. Maybe. Guess it depends on how badly you guys act in class. It's at that moment a vision hits you. All you can do is watch with mounting irritation as Minta tries to sneak into the women's dressing room. Looks like you've figured out what his big scheme for today is. He plans on peeking on the girls while they're changing into their hero costumes for All Might's class this afternoon. When your vision ends, your reaction is instantaneous. Without thinking, you raise the water gun in Minta's direction and pull the trigger. Instead of a simple SQR of cold water like you were expecting, a torrent of water shoots out, hitting the grape-haired boy with enough force to knock him back into his seat. All you can do is stare with aid, along with the rest of the class, as the totally soaked student gasps and sputters. Silence fills the classroom as everyone absorbs what just happened. Slowly, you look at the water gun with disbelief. Damn it, Hatsum. I asked for a water gun, not a hydro pump. By the looks of it, it was super effective. Everyone whips their wide eyes to Todoroki, who just spoke. It's when the realization that the Prince of Ice himself just made a Pokemon reference that everyone loses it. Did he? Did he just? He did. Since when does Todoroki know about Pokemon? Since last night. Sensei and I watched it for a few hours. It was interesting. Meanwhile, you're wheezing, cradling your stomach because you're laughing so strong. Eventually, you drop into the teacher's chair in order to prevent yourself from falling to the floor. From what you can tell, you're not the only one laughing, but you're probably laughing the strongest along with your Araka. She is loving this. While you try to compose yourself, Aizawa enters the classroom, and the students immediately go quiet. He takes in the sight of your trembling form and a completely drenched Minta and sighs wearily. What did you do? You force back a giggle. I overheard Minta scheming before I got here, and just now, I had a vision. Minta was trying to sneak into the girls' dressing room, so I shot him with my water gun. I swear I didn't know it would get him that drenched. I must have missed the instructions on how to change the force of the water spray. Jiro scowls in disgust. Sounds like he got what he deserved. All the other girls nod in agreement. Well, you guess Hagakura's nodding, even though you can't actually see her head. Aizawa tiredly rubs his eyes. Just be more careful when you use that thing. Yayurazu, make him a towel, so he won't be dripping all over the place. Yayurazu, being the saint that she is, does that and makes a hairdryer, so he can go to the bathroom and dry off. At the very least, Minta does look remorseful after having all the girls glare at him, so maybe this taught him a lesson. When the purple-haired boy passes your desk, you call out to him. I am sorry for drenching you like that, Minta. I really just wanted to give you a good SQR to the face to show how I felt about you peeking on the girls. If I had known the water gun would soak you like that, I would have just used my usual cheek pinch strategy. He winces. Maybe I got off easy then, as you huff in amusement at his remark. Minta quickly hurries out the door, so he can dry off. After he leaves, you pull the note from Hatsum out of your pocket. When you flip it over, you see the instructions that state that you can adjust the flow of the water using the other dial on the gun. You shake your head. This should have been on the front of the note. How was I supposed to know there was something on the back? I'll need to be more careful with her inventions from now on. Well, that's one way to start the day, that's for sure. Lunch turns out to be an interesting affair. All Might, in his true form, decides to join you in the teacher's lounge along with Aizawa, Present Mike, and Midnight. The latter two are fighting over the extra bento you made, even though there's enough for 2 people. They just don't seem very keen on sharing. Aizawa is eating his own bento in the safety of his desk, not wanting to approach the rest of the group in case his friends decide to steal his food too. While the other pro-heroes squabble over the bento, Yagi gives you a hopeful look from across the table. I was wondering if you've had any visions pertaining to the fieldwork week that'll be happening soon. Translation: he wants to know if Midoriya will be alright while he's gone for that week. You smile in amusement. Yajisan, you're making me feel like I'm some sort of fortune teller. That's not how my quirk works. While Aizawa snorts in the background, the symbol of peace gives you a sheepish look. My apologies. I was just hoping you'd have some news. As if to spite you, your quirk suddenly activates, showing you a vision of Midoriya training with an old man wearing a black mask and yellow cape. His name is Gran Torino, and he seems to be helping your student figure out how to use his quirk without hurting himself. What a relief. When the vision ends, all 4 adults are watching you. Aizawa appears wary while the other 3 just look curious. Shaking your head, you sigh before raising an eyebrow at Yagi. Apparently, even my quirk can't say no to the number 1 hero. I wish it'd be this responsive to me when I want to use it. Both Present Mike and Midnight laugh at your response before resuming their bento battle when the blonde tries to sneak a piece of shrimp. At the sight of Yagi's eager look, you elaborate. I saw Midoriya training. It looks like Gran Torino will be very helpful when it comes to teaching the kid how to use his quirk without hurting himself. About DMN time. You snort at Aizawa's deadpan remark while Yagi gives the underground hero a nervous look, most likely because the blonde hasn't had much luck with helping Midoriya figure out Ofa. A relieved smile appears on Yagi's face as he returns his focus to you. I'm glad to hear it. Gran Torino is tough, but he's a good teacher. Noticing the way he trembles at the name of the older hero, you can't help but wonder how strong Gran Torino is if he scares the symbol of peace this much. Considering what you saw in the vision, you have a pretty good idea, though. After having enough of their squabbling, Aizawa demands that the 2 heroes fighting over the bento just share the food before he takes it, and kicks them out of the lounge. His friends reluctantly agree with his terms, even though they still quietly fight over who gets the larger pieces of food. As he eats, Present Mike directs his attention to Yagi. You know, All Might, you sure do like Midoriya, don't ya? At this point, it's like you've practically adopted him. The number 1 hero freezes before trying to appear nonchalant. Ooh? You think so? I think I treat him the same as any other student. When the other teachers give him incredulous looks, you snort. You're not subtle at all, Yajisan. It's obvious you got a soft spot for Midoriya. I can't blame you, though. He's really adorable. No wonder he brings out your paternal instincts. Yagi makes a choked noise as he frantically shakes his head. It's not like that, Unkun. I don't, grinning mischievously. You add, Todoroki actually asked Midoriya if he was your illegitimate child. BLD spurts from his mouth as his shock leads the number one hero into a coughing fit. Feeling guilty, you push the tissue box in his direction, which he quickly grabs. Meanwhile, Present Mike and Midnight are laughing uncontrollably. While you can't see his face because he's now hunched over, you do notice how Aizawa appears to be trembling, so you think he's laughing too, just in a more quiet manner. When the coughing fit subsides, Yagi gives you a weary look. Please tell me you're joking. Shaking your head, you reply, sorry, but it's the truth. Just imagine how poor Midoriya felt. That's why you need to learn to be more subtle when you're with him, Dad might. The symbol of peace makes a strangled noise, while the other three heroes simultaneously wheeze at the nickname. Even Aizawa couldn't hold back. Yagi drops his head into his hands, looking completely worn out. Unkun, if I've done something to upset you, I apologize. I don't know what I did to deserve this, but I truly regret it. You fight back the urge to grin at his reaction. Yajason, while I admit I am teasing you, I haven't said anything that wasn't true. No matter what you say to try to convince me, you cannot deny your inner dad. It's a part of you, so you might as well go ahead and accept it. Present Mike hugs you tightly as he shakes from laughing too strong. If you can't have mercy on him, then have mercy on us. If you keep this up, I'll pass out from lack of air. How is that a bad thing? That's an ideal outcome. Continue. Aizawa's dry remark makes you giggle while the vocal hero whines about how mean his friend is. Meanwhile, Midnight is taking this chance to steal extra bites from the bento. Somehow, Present Mike notices this, even though his back is currently turned toward her. Maybe it's a special sense he has. You're so sneaky. Midnight, what kind of hero are you? A hungry one. Midnight retorts obviously. You don't need all this if you're more interested in talking than eating. And with that, the bento battle resumes until Aizawa finally uses his quirk-enforced glare to shut the two up. After that, the rest of the lunch PRD passes peacefully since you decide to give Yagi a break and not tease him further, even though his reactions are hilarious. Unbeknownst to you, the symbol of peace was secretly plotting his revenge. When All Might asked you to help him out during his afternoon lesson with Class 1A, you didn't know what to expect. After he explains to everyone what exactly they'll be doing today, you regret agreeing to help. Apparently, the class will be divided into 2 teams of 10 with one representing the heroes while the others are the villains. You will be hiding somewhere in the training grounds that are designed to look like a city. The goal of this exercise is for a team to find you and carry you through their respective exit gates. The kids are allowed to go after each other as long as you remain in the city limits, so a team doesn't automatically win when they find you. They have to find you and keep you until they get past the gate. Overall, it's like a crazy game of American foot with you being the how fun. All Might notices your tense expression and grins reassuringly. Don't worry, everything will be fine. After all, you'd have a vision if something were to go wrong, right? Once again, his words result in you having a vision. You're starting to wonder if this is actually his quirk, and you're just somehow holding it for him. How the hell else can you explain how easily it responds to his questions? Contrary to what the symbol of peace says, things are not at all fine, at least not for you. According to your vision, you're going to be dropped several times and have several heart attack-inducing moments thanks to the kids attacking each other. When the vision ends, you see everyone watching you curiously. Taking a deep breath, you place your palms together, angling them more toward you. With a deep exhale, you point your hands toward your students. Boy. The class is split in half in terms of reactions. One side is holding back their laughter at your meme usage, while the other looks anxious about what upset you. Good. They should be worried. Eyes narrowed, you direct your attention to All Might, who automatically straightens his posture in response. I'm not doing this until you show them the proper way to carry a civilian to safety. I have no idea why you haven't already, but please do it now. I just saw myself getting dropped by like half the class. I do not want to actually experience that firsthand. Everyone collectively winces at your words, including the teacher. The number one hero quickly agrees and goes over the do's and don'ts when carrying people to safety. He also instructs them to only use the bridal carry for you, which you're grateful for since you really don't want to be slung over someone's shoulder. Once that's settled, you head for the center of the training area, while the teams go to their separate entrances that are on opposite sides of the training grounds. The exercise won't start until you send All Might a text, saying that you're ready. You do your best to find a building that's right in between the entrances, but try not to go for the obvious first choice. Might as well try to make the hide-and-go-seek part at least a little difficult. Rather than go inside the tall building in the immediate center, you pick one of the smaller buildings not too far from it. After you find a nice little corner on the first floor obscured by some debris, you send out the text and make yourself comfortable. You figure the closer to the ground you are the better, so no upper floors for you. Far off in the distance, you can hear some yelling. Looks like the kids are getting hyped up. Since oftentimes heroes have to rescue civilians who can't respond, All Might instructed you to keep quiet, meaning the students have to find you without you helping them. You're curious to see who will be the first person to find you. Xiaoji's a good bet since he has such good hearing. You muse. I wouldn't mind him carrying me since he's one of the few guys who didn't drop me in my vision. The heroes have Jiru, though, so it's possible her team will find me first. Shortly after you think that, you hear some explosions coming from nearby. Looks like it won't be long now. Hopefully, they won't bring the building down while you're still in it. By the sound of things, it seems Kirishima and Kaminari are checking out the building that you figured they'd look at first. You do, however, hear rapid footsteps approaching your direction as well. Xiaoji-kun, can you help me check this building? Leave it to Midoriya to find your hiding place so quickly. When you strain your ears, you pick up Yoruzuzu's voice alongside his and Xiaoji's. Curious if you'll be able to deceive the mass student, you slow your breathing after hearing him enter the building and try not to make any sounds. Despite your efforts, you eventually hear Xiaoji's amused voice. Nice try, sensei, but I can tell you're there. Even though he can't actually see you right now, you still pout. You're proud of his skills obviously, but you thought it'd be fun to trick him. Oh well. Seconds after that, Xiaoji peers around the debris and sees you. You grin. Oh lucky me. Someone has found me after I've fallen and can't get up. Your grin grows when he snorts. Before he can reach for you, a familiar quirk wraps around your waist and pulls you into the air. From your airborne position, you can see Takoyami and Jiru standing close by. Looks like Xiaoji wasn't the only one to hear you in here. That makes you wonder where Yaoyorozu and Midoriya went. Weren't they just outside the building? Either they got distracted by the other team, or the two hero team members found another way inside. Now, you're wondering how they plan on escaping with you. Considering the fact that you're taller than both Jiru and Takoyami, you're wondering if they can carry you. Their best bet is probably for Dark Shadow to do it. Before they can do that, Aoyama bursts through the doorway and aims his laser in Dark Shadow's direction. This causes the quirk to drop you, much to your dismay. However, this was apparently all according to plan since you fall straight into Xiaoji's awaiting arms. The wall behind him suddenly crumbles, revealing Satu and Midoriya. Xiaoji immediately makes his escape, while Satu and Aoyama remain behind to deal with the two hero team members. It doesn't take long before you hear yells from all over, letting you know that everyone knows you've been found. After a few minutes of running, Xiaoji and Midoriya make a turn and come to a complete halt. You realize why when you see all the purple spheres littering the ice-covered ground. Looks like Mainta and Todoroki have this escape route taken care of. Before they can turn around, a wall of ice surrounds them, signaling the arrival of Todoroki. Midoriya responds by punching through it, thankfully doing so in a way that doesn't break any of his bones. While the green-haired boy attempts to distract the ice user, Xiaoji suddenly jumps backwards, just barely missing being grabbed by Uraraka. Unfortunately, this leads to the mass student being blocked in. At that moment, you hear Asui shout, "Xiaoji-chan!" As soon as his grip on you loosens, a tongue wraps around your waist and pulls you toward a nearby roof where the frog girl is standing. From this vantage point, you can see Kaminari and Kirishima going at it, while Hagakure is handling Ojiro. Yaoyorozu and Suro appear to be trying to hold off Ashido and Kuda. Asui surprises you when she suddenly swings her tongue toward the other side of the building where she drops you into an awaiting Ida's arms. One of his arms loops under your legs while the other braces your neck. Looks like you're about to experience what running at breakneck speed feels like. With that, Ida takes off, running as fast as he can toward the exit to ensure the villain team's victory. While you have no idea if this was their plan from the very start, you got to admit this is a good one. Having Ida be the one to take you to the exit is definitely a surefire way to win. Of course, as soon as you think that, something has to happen to prove you wrong. At that moment, Ida comes to such an abrupt halt, he nearly falls over, with the force of the sudden stop actually causing you to be knocked out of his grasp. Before you hit the ground, another pair of arms grabs you, catching you by surprise. Your eyes widen once you realize it was Bakugo who caught you. Now that you think about it, he was one of the only students you didn't see earlier. Did he realize Ida would come this way and decide to wait for him? Honestly, you expected him to be one of the first students to start brawling, while his teammates worked to find and carry you. When you check on Ida to see what caused him to stop so suddenly, you see one of Mainta's purple spheres underneath his foot. Off to the side, you notice the gray-haired boy grinning at his success. Since he can't use his quirk while holding you, Bakugo starts running in the direction opposite of where you were headed earlier, right past a frustrated Ida. UFC King dropped her. Weren't you paying any attention earlier? 4 eyes? The class president freezes in surprise after hearing the unexpected lecture. Soon after, his shame-filled voice fills the air. My apologies, Unsensei. I'm utterly ashamed of myself. I promise this will not happen again. Bakugo scoffs while you aim a smile at Ida from over the hothead's shoulder. It's all right, Ida. I know that time was an accident that you couldn't really control. At least, it'll be a good learning experience. Minda stays behind with Ida after being ordered by Bakugo to let the villain team member escape. Unsurprisingly, the gray-haired boy doesn't argue with his teammate. For several minutes, Bakugo remains silent. The only thing you hear is the nearby sounds of other students fighting one another. Much to your surprise, the blonde successfully steers clear of any fight he hears, even though he could easily drop you off with another teammate and join the free-for-all. This is what you meant, right? You jolt in surprise, not expecting him to speak. Huh, he rolls his eyes as he clicks his tongue. Yesterday, you said heroes shouldn't be all about fighting. We should prioritize helping civilians first. Like this? Your eyes grow large. Is that why you're not trying to pick a fight right now? Because of what I said? An annoyed scowl forms on his lips. Don't get the wrong idea. I still want to be the strongest. I just thought I'd see what the big deal is and try it your way rather than bother fighting all these F-seeking extras. Besides, now you can't get on my case and say I've never helped anyone, can you? The corners of your lips curve upwards. I guess I can't. In the end, the hero team wins after Bakugo makes it through the exit with you in tow. However, it became a close battle once everyone realized that Class 1A's #1 hothead was the one who actually had you. The villain team made a last-ditch effort to reclaim you, but they failed. After that, All Might goes over what all they did right and wrong after congratulating the hero team for their victory, giving Bakugo, in particular, a big thumbs up. Kirishima keeps saying how manly Bakugo was while Minta won't stop bragging about how it's thanks to him that his team won. Ida still feels remorseful about dropping you, even though you've assured him several times that it's okay. Dark Shadow also appears before you to apologize for the same reason, so you give him a head scratch to show that all is forgiven. Compared to your vision, this round went much more smoothly, so you have no complaints. Once All Might finishes his lecture, everyone heads back to the main building, so the students can change back into their school uniforms. During the walk back, you saddle up beside Bakugo and quickly put a big sparkly smiley face sticker on his cheek. Immediately, after you do that, you run ahead of the group, so the annoyed blonde can't catch you. Good work today, Bakugo. You hear loud cursing coming from behind you, meaning he must have taken the sticker off to see what was on it, and several voices start yelling at Bakugo, telling him that he can't chase after a teacher. That only makes you pick up your pace. Run, sensei, run for your life. Don't look back. DMN, they're both so manly. Kirishima, quit gawking and help us stop Bakugo before he catches up to her. Bakugo-kun, cease this at once. This is not heroic at all. Keikaken, despite the danger of your current situation, you find yourself grinning the whole trip back, and you don't think that grin will be leaving your face anytime soon. When field work week finally arrives, you go with Aizawa to see off the students as they leave for their individual destinations, all of which are very excited about the upcoming week, Uraraka especially. She's been talking about her internship with Gunhead nonstop for the last several days. Much to your surprise, Todoroki chose his father's agency. When you asked him why, he explained that the man is the #2 hero for a reason, so there are things he can learn from him. While you were obviously concerned for him, you didn't bother trying to talk him out of it, knowing his mind was made up. Instead, you simply told him to keep in touch, and to let you know if there was ever anything you could do for him. Midoriya, of course, is going to be with Gran Torino for the next week, since that was the only offer he received, and he didn't want to pass up the opportunity to work with All Might's former teacher. While you didn't go into details about the vision you had of his internship, you did tell Midoriya that it would be a very enlightening experience. He seemed very excited when you told him he'd be learning a lot. Ida's decision hasn't changed since he turned in his internship form. He really wants to go to Hasu, even though several larger agencies sent him offers. According to Aizawa, who made sure to question the boy about his decision, Ida wants to go to Hasu to do his brother's share of the work, while Ingenium is on leave. Another noteworthy thing the student said was that he wanted to help in any way he could to stop Stain. Rather than get revenge, it seems like Ida just wants to somehow contribute to the hero killer's capture, so Stain can't hurt anyone else. Even though he could be lying, you honestly believe he's telling the truth, and Aizawa agrees. No matter how you both look at the situation, Ida does not seem bent on revenge. Even Ingenium contacted you to assure you that he truly doesn't believe his brother will be reckless. You really hope that he's right. When you arrive back on campus, you are surprised to see Shinsu standing outside in front of Heights Alliance. Instead of his school uniform, he's wearing his gym uniform. Noticing your shocked expression, the general department student grins. Hero Corps students aren't the only ones who can do field work this week. Anyone who does well during the sports festival can get an offer. Immediately, you spin around to point at Aizawa, who raises an eyebrow. I knew it. I knew you'd like him. My visions never lie, he rolls his eyes. Well, now I know what that one vision was about that you didn't elaborate on. Shinsu crosses his arms. A little heads up would have been nice. You wave a dismissive hand in his direction. You can't expect me to tell you everything that will happen. Think how boring things would be if you knew exactly how everything would go. Aizawa shrugs. She's right. Now, go ahead and get dressed. You have 10 minutes. Your brows furrow in confusion. Get dressed for what? The purple-haired student snorts. He didn't tell you that either. You're a part of this training too, sensei. Gaping, you give the older man an incredulous look. What? Why are you training me? I'm not trying to become a hero. Aizawa sticks his pinky in his ear. No, but the villains do have an interest in you. Not to mention, as a Ta, you have a responsibility to look after the students. Don't you think learning some self-defense would be the most logical solution? For several seconds, you just open and close your mouth. There's really nothing you can say since he's right. If you want to continue helping your students, you'll need to be able to protect yourself and possibly protect them if the need should ever arise. That's why you immediately hurry into the dorm and head for your room to get changed into some gym clothes. Looks like your students won't be the only ones having an eventful week. Aizawa's training is as hellish as expected, but he never overworks you or Shinsu. There are regularly scheduled breaks between exercises, so you both can rehydrate. Unsurprisingly, your athletic skills leave much to be desired. Considering you don't remember doing much physical activity besides running on a treadmill almost every day, this should be expected. However, Aizawa is surprised by your stamina. Apparently, he expected you to need a break a lot sooner than you actually did, so kudos to you for catching the underground hero off guard. While the training ends up going pretty smoothly, things begin to get strange when you start learning some self-defense. Aizawa's more keen on you learning defense than offense right now, which makes perfect sense to you. Thankfully, Shinsu seems fine with it as well. Honestly, you think he'd do pretty much whatever the older man said if it meant getting himself one step closer to becoming a hero. The boy's determination is off the charts. The reason why you're getting a strange feeling as you're learning self-defense is the fact that all the moves he shows you feel familiar. While you have absolutely no memories of ever doing any of these moves, each time you copy a move that you're shown you feel as if you've done it before in the past. It doesn't take Aizawa long to notice this either. His eyes narrow. You've said before that you don't remember ever learning how to fight, correct? Your shoulders slump as Shinsu eyes you curiously. I don't know how to explain it, but even though I don't remember ever learning these moves, they feel familiar to me. And I don't know why. The purple-haired student rolls his shoulders. What's that saying? The body never forgets even if the mind does. What if it's something like that? A frown appears on Aizawa's face. Muscle memory. That would explain it. But that would also imply she's been doing these moves long enough that they've been ingrained into her body. Wit-8, you stare at your hands, as if they'll somehow provide the answers you're lacking. When they begin to shake, you quickly clench them into fists. Who was I before the amnesia? Why can't I remember? The older man's tiredly sighs. It's likely a quirk was involved that erased and possibly altered your memories. Unless we find the person who did that or find whoever you were previously involved with, we won't be able to find out the truth. Your fists clench tighter at his words. Before you can dwell further in your thoughts, a slight nudge to your side draws your attention to Shinsu. While I get why you're worried, isn't who you are right now more important than who you were before? What matters more is what you plan on doing from this point on, right? You stare at him in surprise for several seconds before a warm smile forms on your lips. Yeah, you're right. No matter what happened, I can't let my past dictate how I act now. For now, I should try to just focus on the present. And that's just what you do. Pushing all your worries to the back of your mind, you focus all your attention on Aizawa's lessons. No matter strong it gets, you are determined to get stronger, so you can become someone whom everyone can rely on. You don't have to be the strongest or the fastest. You just need to be able to look out for yourself, so you won't be a burden to anyone. By the time Aizawa ends training for the day, you feel like you're about to keel over. If you were to lie down right now, you probably wouldn't get back up. Shinsu looks much the same. You feel bad for the poor kid since he still has to make his commute back home. At least, Aizawa plans on walking with him to the train station. With that thought in mind, you come up with an idea just as you're being dropped off at the dorm. Hey, what if Shinsu just stayed at Heights Alliance for the week? That way he wouldn't have to worry about commuting. There are plenty of empty rooms since the whole class hasn't moved in yet. The GD student appears surprised by the offer, while Aizawa's expression turns contemplative. After a few seconds, he nods his head. That would probably be for the best. It would save a lot of time as well. He'll go home tonight, but Shinsu can bring an overnight bag tomorrow to last him for the rest of the week. You grin broadly. Awesome. Shinsu can keep me company since I'm the only one here with Todoroki and Uraraka gone. It's weird having such a huge building to myself. Shinsu snorts. Glad my presence can bring you some entertainment. With that, you all part ways with you entering the dorm while the other two head for the train station. Right now, you want nothing more than to go to sleep, but you know you'll regret going to bed without a shower when you eventually wake up. Sighing, you head up to your room so you can get what you need for your shower. You end up spending a great deal of time in shower, unable to bring yourself to leave the pleasantly warm water. Eventually, you do leave, albeit very reluctantly. Rather than go all the way up to your room to drop off your stuff, you leave it on one of the dining tables and start to work on your dinner. You honestly can't remember the last time you cooked just for yourself. It feels like you've always had to prepare a meal for someone. Since it's just for you, you settle for something quick and simple. Taking advantage of being the lone occupant for the night, you eat in front of the TV so you can have something to watch while you eat. After you finish eating, you wash the dishes, grab your stuff, and head back to your room. You turn off the lights and make yourself comfortable in your bed. Just before you drift off, one thought crosses your mind. My first day of training went pretty well. Hopefully, I'll learn a lot about self-defense in the days to come. Little did you know that self-defense wouldn't be the only thing you'd be learning during your training with Aizawa and Shinsu. Tuesday's training sessions turns out to be pretty similar to yesterday's, with the only real difference being that Aizawa wants you and Shinsu to spar with each other, not just with him. While you have a pretty good grasp of the moves you've learned thanks to muscle memory, you're not sure how well you'll do in a fight with the purple-haired boy. Unsurprisingly, none of the fights end in your favor, no matter who your opponent is. However, the fights last longer than you expect because you're surprisingly good at evading attacks. According to Aizawa, your reaction time is faster than he expected. Even so, you still can't help but feel frustrated with yourself. You know it's stupid. You're just a civilian with strongly any training. Of course, you would be bad at fighting. Still, you can't help but feel like you could be good at this. There's just something missing, something you need to pull out your full potential. It's during an afternoon spar with Shinsu that you realize just what that something is. Your mind races as you parry another punch from the GD student. Do what Aizawa-san said. Read his moves. Get one step ahead of him. Don't let yourself be surprised. Watch him. At that moment, your mind suddenly goes completely blank. A strange sensation washes over you reminiscent of when you get a vision, but this is different. Your eyes fall shut. It's something new yet not. While you originally thought you had all your memories pertaining to your quirk, it would seem you were wrong, very wrong. Rather than a vision of the far-off future, your quirk shows you that Shinsu is about to do a sweeping kick to knock your legs out from under you. That's why you immediately jump, successfully dodging the kick. A punch to your left side. Blocked. To your gut. You jump back to avoid it. Another kick, this time to your side. You block with your arm and push back to knock him off balance. Seeing an opening, your eyes fly open as you rush forward to strike Shinsu ch-sent, knocking him flat on his back. Before you can prepare your next move, Aizawa's voice rings out. Stop. Immediately, you freeze, and just like that, the tingling of your quirk invading your senses fades. With a blink, your vision returns to normal, except now something's changed. Hissing, you clench your eyes shut and cover them with your hands in a futile attempt to block any light from coming through. If that wasn't enough, now your head is positively throbbing. There's a hand on your shoulder, and you can tell someone is talking to you. It takes you a few minutes to concentrate, so that you can understand what's being said. Hear me? And you need to tell me what's going on. Recognizing Aizawa's voice, you find yourself leaning toward him, so you can press your face against his ch-sent. You are so glad the man constantly wears dark clothing. If you do this, you can block out the light better. Rather than push you away like you half expect, the underground hero puts a hand on your back, while the other remains on your shoulder. What happened? Was that your quirk? You give him a shaky nod. I didn't activate it on purpose, though. I didn't even know I could do that, but it felt familiar. I think I've used this ability before, but any memory I had of using it was erased. From your left, you can hear Shinsu comment, by the looks of it, you were predicting my movements, but what I really want to know was what made your eyes glow blue like that. Scared the CRP out of me when you opened them. That makes you pause. My eyes were glowing. Aizawa sighs wearily. Yes, they were. Rather than focus on that, right now I want to know what kind of backlash you're currently dealing with. What's wrong with your eyes? biting your lip. You give a helpless shrug, still not wanting to pull away from the older man. I think they're really light sensitive now. I can't really explain how, but now, it hurts to open my eyes. Everything is too bright. A startled squeak escapes you when you're suddenly lifted into a bridal carry by the underground hero. Aizawa-san. What are you? While Shinsu snickers, Aizawa replies, I'm taking you to Recovery Girl. This is the most logical option rather than leading you around with your eyes closed. She needs to check out your eyes. Realizing you have no choice in the matter, you accept your fate and hope that the heroine will have mercy on you. Luck appears to actually be on your side today. While you do get a scolding, it's not too harsh since you had no idea you'd end up in this state after using your quirk like you did. Recovery Girl examines your eyes and says there's no actual damage to them. Just like you guessed, they're just really sensitive now since they were overworked from using your quirk. As long as you don't use your quirk for the rest of the day, she believes your eyesight will return to normal by tomorrow if not sooner. For your headache, the heroine kindly offers some pain reliever along with some gummies. After you leave the infirmary, Aizawa tells you to sit out the rest of today's training session. Wearing a pair of sunglasses given to you by Recovery Girl, you watch Shinsu spar with Aizawa for the last few hours of the session. When you all return to the dorm, Shinsu heads for the second floor to claim a room before he goes to take a shower. Before you can head to your own room, a hand on your shoulder stops you. You turn to look at Aizawa curiously and see him frowning. What's wrong? Aizawa-san, sighing. He motions for you to join him on the couch. Once you're both seated, the older man says, there was something different about your fighting style when you were using your quirk. Noticing your confused expression, Aizawa tiredly rubs his eyes. During that short PRD of time, I wasn't watching someone who just learned how to fight. I was watching someone with a lot of experience. Even though you can't remember, I could tell just from watching you that you've been in several fights, and unfortunately, I don't think they were normal ones. Your stomach turns uneasily. What do you mean? Noticing your discomfort, his expression softens marginally. What I mean is, I think you had it a lot rougher than I originally thought. It might be a good thing you don't remember everything. There are some things that people don't want to remember. You look down as you bite your lip. Aizawa-san, do you think I'm dangerous? Having this kind of experience, is that bad? A hand lands on your head, gently ruffling your hair. No, I don't. You're a lot of things, but you're not dangerous, at least not to anyone else besides yourself. You've been here over a month, and the only damage you've caused is to yourself, albeit unintentionally. I know you won't hurt anyone. Tears spring to your eyes, but you quickly blink them away before they can fall. Once you've done that, you look up and smile at the older man. Thank you, Aizawa-san. Aizawa nods as he removes his hand. Before he can move to leave, you grab a hold of his arm, causing him to raise an eyebrow at you. What? Your grin grows. You'll stay for dinner, won't you, Aizawa-san? At first, it looks like he'll argue, but then, he seems to change his mind. The underground hero slouches back against the cushions with a sigh. Go wash up first. I'll just nap here in the meantime. Wake me up when it's time to eat. Beaming, you quickly head to your room to get your things. Just as you're getting on the elevator that will take you to the girls' side of the dorm, Shinsu gets off the elevator for the guys' side. You give him a quick wave before the elevator doors shut. It really is much nicer having other people around. After so many years of loneliness, you never want to return to that. For the third day of training, Aizawa tells you not to use your quirk to fight. While it's definitely something that should be explored, right now he just wants to focus on your physical skills. At one point during training, the underground hero does give Shinsu some time to practice with his quirk, though, once you say you're fine with the GD student using it on you. You're progressively getting better at not falling for the purple-haired boy's ploys, but he's also getting craftier. A part of you wonders if his quirk gives him the secondary skill of being good at getting people to talk to him. After about an hour or so of that, the two of you return to the exercises Aizawa wants you both to do every day. While you're somewhat getting better at push-ups, you're still pretty bad at them. Besides those, you don't really mind the rest of physical activities. Training ends early because the underground hero gets called in for work. So, after he leaves, you and Shinsu change clothes after taking showers. The two of you play video games for around an hour before the purple-haired boy decides to head for his room for a nap. You keep playing until you remember that you haven't been grocery shopping in a while. Checking to make sure, you confirm that you're running low on a lot of things. You'll need to make a quick trip to the store so that you can make dinner for you and Shinsu. Since you don't want to wake him, you leave a note on the refrigerator, telling Shinsu that you've gone out for groceries. While you prefer to have someone with you when you leave campus, you have made a few trips to the store in the past on your own, so you're sure you'll be fine. It takes you a little while to get everything you need since there's a bit of a crowd at the grocery store. Thankfully, you're able to finish shopping within the hour. You might actually make it back before Shinsu even wakes up. Just as you catch sight of US Gate in the distance, it happens. You take a step forward and suddenly the ground beneath you vanishes. Your eyes widen in horror as you fall into a familiar, black portal. In a blink, the scenery changes from the wide, empty street to that of a cold, dark nondescript alley. You're barely aware of the fact that you're no longer carrying your groceries, too shocked by what's going on to really care. You must be the prophet. A chill runs down your spine at the sound of a familiar voice that haunted one of the worst visions you've ever had. Your eyes grow large when you turn around and meet the eyes of the masked man standing a few feet away from you. "Hero killer, Stain," you whisper. At the sight of his large grin, you begin to tremble. Roman too don't understand. "How? Why? Why am I here?" Stain taps his jagged blade against his shoulder. "I've been wanting to meet you ever since my encounter with Ingenium. You were the one who told him about my quirk, weren't you? And you warned him about encountering me. Despite your best efforts, you can't stop shaking. How do you know that? Did you? You cut yourself off as realization hits you like a lightning bolt. That's what Ingenium can't remember about that fight. His memories were shaky after he injured his head. He mentioned me, didn't he?" His grin grows. "That's right. Of course, he never said your name. I was suspicious of him from the start since I could tell he knew too much, but when I tried to question him, he kept silent. Even when I threatened his life, he wouldn't tell me your name. All I knew was that he was warned ahead of time." Stain cracks his neck. "I decided that Ingenium was actually worth sparing. Laying down your life to protect another, that's what it means to be a real hero. I figured there was some potential in him after all." All you can do is stare. Of all the possible reasons to explain Stain's unusual actions, you were not expecting that. So, despite Ingenium not heeding your advice, you were still able to somehow help him in the end. Unfortunately, you can't really celebrate thanks to your current situation. However, there's something strange about his story. If Ingenium never told the hero killer anything specific about you, then how does he know who you are? How did he know who to go after? That's when you remember what brought you here in the first place. That black portal. The League of Villains told you about me. That was Kurogiri's warp gate that brought me here, wasn't it? You ask. He scratches his chin. That's right. While I haven't really decided if I want to work with them yet, I thought I'd give them a chance since I could get to you through them. They asked me to kill you, but I wanted to see what your goals were before I decided what to do with you. His words fill you with dread. The League of Villains really is after you. You're not sure if it's because of what you did to prevent the Ust attack, or if it's because of the barrier Quirk villain. Either way, you're in a bad situation. That dread turns into confusion once his last comment registers in your mind. My goals. What do you mean? Stain tilts his head as his eyes narrow. According to the villains, your visions revolve around All Might and the kids at UA. So, why did you get a vision of me attacking Ingenium? Whatever pain he doesn't get transfers to you, right? Why go through all that trouble just for some run-of-the-mill hero? Surprise briefly crosses your features when he mentions your drawback. But before you can wonder how he and the League of Villains know about it, you get distracted by his last question. A scowl forms on your lips as you glare at him. So, what? You think Ingenium wasn't worth the effort? Of course, he was. If I hadn't interfered, you would have paralyzed him. You were going to take his future as a hero away. I had to do something. Or his brother would. You snap your mouth shut, swallowing the rest of the words that want to pour out. Because you got emotional. You said too much. You can't afford to say any more about what would have happened with Ida since that's the last thing Stain needs to know. So, the barrier Quirk user was right. His words make you freeze. Your earlier anger vanishes, replaced with a fear you can't suppress. There's only one barrier Quirk user you know of. The hero killer continues. He and the other villains found out about you taking the pain for Ingenium. His guess for why you interfered was because that hero's younger brother is a UA student, you know. That would explain why you had a vision of our encounter. The real question is, how did the younger brother handle his brother's defeat? Your body starts shaking again despite your best efforts to contain it. He's putting all the pieces of the puzzle together, and there's nothing you can do to stop him. If only he hadn't met with the League of Villains, then you wouldn't be in this situation. You wouldn't have to worry about him finding out about Ida. Clenching your teeth, you reply, it doesn't matter what he would have done because that future isn't going to happen. Things are different now. Ingenium won't be retiring anytime soon. Stain swings his sword to point at you, making you flinch. People don't change that easily. If the younger brother came after me for revenge in that future, it's likely he'll make the same mistake of selfishly using his power in this timeline. Who's to say something else won't happen that'll leave him thirsting for vengeance? The world doesn't need that kind of hero. You glare at him heatedly. So, you'll try to kill him for a mistake he could have made? Who are you to play God and make those kinds of judgments? He's just a kid. Of course, he'll make mistakes. That's what it means to be human. People can change. You're just being way too narrow-minded. My student will become an amazing hero, and I won't let you take his future away. I'll stop you, no matter what. A chill runs down your spine when the hero killer grins. Then, let's put your conviction to the test. It happens in a flash. Stain swings his sword so fast you have no chance of dodging it in time. Despite how much you try, you can't bring your body to move an inch, too paralyzed with fear, before he can make contact. However, his swing abruptly changes course. All you can do is watch with aid as the sword makes contact with an armored figure, successfully knocking their helmet and glasses off as they fall backwards. You're filled with dread when you recognize your would rescuer's face. Ida. Your student rises to his feet before slowly moving into a fighting position. There's a fierce, determined look in his eyes as he focuses his attention on Stain. I am here to rescue you, Unsensei. Stain points his sword in Ida's direction as he frowns. It's like I said. He can't change his true colors. Despite everything you did to prevent this outcome, he still came for revenge in the end. You're wrong. At the sound of Ida's shout, you direct your attention to him and see him glaring heatedly at the hero killer. While I won't attempt to deny what happened in Sensei's vision, I can say, without any hesitation, that I am here now because I want to save her. When I saw that you were about to attack her, I knew I had to intervene. Your eyes grow large. Ida, did you overhear us talking about my vision? He frowns guiltily but never lets his eyes leave Stain. I apologize for eavesdropping. After I got separated from my supervisor, I caught sight of the hero killer and was worried someone was about to be killed. When I saw you, I was going to intervene, but I ended up listening to everything that was said. His hands clench into fists as he grits his teeth. It's because of me that you're in this situation. That's why I plan on taking full responsibility. I will not allow this killer to harm you, no matter what. Rather than attempt to attack the hero killer like he did in your vision, Ida activates his quirk and tries to make a grab for you, so the two of you can escape. Expecting this, Stain latches onto your arm and flings you further down the alleyway outside of your student's reach. You wince from the pain caused by your rough landing. Quickly, you push yourself up and scream the first warning you can. Don't let him eat your BLD. His quirk allows him to temporarily paralyze his opponents. Unfortunately, your warning comes too late. All you can do is watch in horror as Ida gets knocked to the ground after being stabbed in the arm with one of Stain's knives and getting kicked in the back. When you see the hero killer raise his sword, you attempt to intervene, but several knives are thrown into the ground before you, making you freeze. At the sound of Ida's pained cry, you look up from the ground to see that Stain stabbed one of the boy's arms. However, your student isn't ready to give up. He's trying to stand even with the killer's boot on his head. Stain shakes his head. You're too weak. How can you save her if you can't even save yourself? Is this really the best you can do? No, stop. Your cries are ignored as the hero killer licks the BLD off his blade and activates his quirk. You can tell just from observing Ida's expression that he can no longer move his body. Realizing there's nothing preventing Stain from killing Ida now, you try to go help your student but find yourself unable to move. Taking in your trembling form, you realize that unlike Ida, who can't move because of the killer's quirk, you're paralyzed because of fear. Even though your student's life is in danger because he tried to protect you, you're just standing there like a complete coward. What the hell is wrong with you? Stain notices this and turns to face you. And what about you? Didn't you say you'd protect his future, no matter what? It looks like you're both all talk and no action. Leave her alone. She's innocent. All she's ever done is try to protect me. I'll admit my sins, but there's no reason for you to go after her. Despite his life being in danger, Ida is more worried about you. Even though you're doing nothing to help him, he's still trying to protect you. How could Stain ever claim that the boy is anything but a true hero? Suddenly, your shaking stops. Despite everything, Ida is still trying to protect me. If I don't do something, he'll die. Stain will succeed in taking away his future. I can't let that happen. I can't. Your eyes narrow as you clench your hands tightly into fists. I don't care what happens to me, but I won't let you kill him. His future is not for you to decide. Stain. The hero killer grins. And what can you do to stop me? Thinking back to yesterday, you recall what led you to summoning your new power. Taking a deep breath, you clear your mind and let your quirk's power wash over you. Unbeknownst to you, your eyes begin to glow a dark red as you take a step forward, so you can quickly reach down to pull two of Stain's knives out of the ground. I can show you the consequences of messing with a future that's not yours to interfere with. Quickly, you throw the knives at him, but Stain immediately knocks them away as he charges forward while Ida yells for you to run. You channel as much power as you can to predict his movements. What you did yesterday won't be enough. You need to see several steps ahead if you're going to survive this. The tingling sensation grows stronger as it fully invades your senses. Before your eyes, you see what the hero killer plans to do. Every blow he attempts, you evade but just barely. The man is just too fast. There's no way you can fight back. There aren't any openings. Even so, you don't stop. Despite the fact that you're pushing your body to its very limit, you keep using your quirk to dodge. You know the drawback will be even worse this time around, but you don't care. All that matters is keeping Stain away from Ida. If your hunch is right, you don't even have to defeat or subdue him. Since Ida is here, there's a possibility that Midoriya and Todoroki will arrive soon as well. While you don't know what exactly brought the two boys to Hasu in the first place, you do know they arrived in time to save Ida, so there's a chance they'll come this time too. Just after he lunges after you and you fall back to dodge, you foresee Stain aiming a kick to your gut, but before you can move to avoid it, your body suddenly freezes. No matter how strong you try to move, your body won't budge. Your eyes widen in realization. And no, it can't be. Before you can wonder about how he was able to get some of your BLD, his kick connects, sending you flying back into the brick wall behind you. You cry out in pain when your body makes contact with it. The combination of your head hitting the brick and the overuse of your quirk is too much for you. Despite your best efforts to remain conscious to protect Ida, who's now screaming your name, darkness encroaches your vision, and you swiftly drift into unconsciousness. Surprisingly enough, you regain consciousness less than 10 minutes later. As soon as you wake, you feel the full effects of your quirk's drawback, and you have to bite your lip to prevent yourself from whimpering. As expected, the drawback is 100 times worse than last time. Your head feels like someone repeatedly used a base bat on it. You also feel strangely fatigued, even though you don't think you were fighting that long. Thankfully, since it's so dark in the alley, you don't really have to worry about your eyesight being affected. You do have to keep your gaze away from the direction of the alley's exit, however, since even the meager light from the faraway street lamp seems too bright. Much to your surprise, you discover that there's a wet, sticky substance clinging to your upper lip. When you move your hand to wipe it away, you realize it's BLD. It takes you a second to realize your nose is bleeding. Well, that explains how Stain used his quirk on you. You must have gotten a nosebleed sometime during the fight. Since you can move now, that must mean the time limit has passed. That's when the sounds of the nearby battle fully register in your dazed mind. Eyes widening, you direct your gaze toward the fight just in time to see Ada jump from his spot beside Todoroki into the air, heading straight for the airborne Stain. In addition to those two, Midoriya is also midair, aiming for the hero killer. Both boys land perfect hits on Stain, who's unable to dodge. Despite the force of the attacks, Stain still remains conscious and swings his sword at Ida. Todoroki aims a fire blast at the killer's head, while the blue-haired student kicks him again. This time Stain stays down. Todoroki uses his ice to catch his classmates and bring them back down to him, while the hero killer lays prone near the tip of the glacier. A relieved smile forms on your lips. You did it. You guys really beat the hero killer. Immediately, all three students gazes WHP toward your crumpled form. Midoriya and Ida quickly move toward you while Todoroki keeps his eyes on Stain. Ida kneels down beside you. Sensei, are you all right? You lost consciousness after you hit the wall. We need to get you to a hospital immediately. Midoriya nods. We should probably get out of this alley first. I can carry you if you need me to, Sensei. Despite their clearly more serious injuries, the two are more worried about you. You don't know why you're surprised, considering the kind of guys they are. Smiling, you use the wall to brace yourself as you move into a standing position with both boys hovering nervously in case you happen to fall. You do your best to look reassuring. I'm okay, really. I think my quirk is what really knocked me out rather than the wall. That's what caused the nosebleed and the awful headache I have now. I don't think I have a concussion, so I should be able to walk fine on my own. While they don't appear to be convinced, the two don't try to argue with you. That's when Todoroki chimes in. We need to look for some rope, so we can tie the hero killer up. Midoriya brings his gaze back to Stain. We also need to get rid of all his weapons. You volunteer to look for rope while the students handle collecting the killer's weapons. After you find some, you let the boys handle tying up Stain's arms and the rest of his body. After that's taken care of, you give them all another onsoba. You guys look awful. We need to go to the nearest hospital after the pro-heroes arrive to take Stain. Upon noticing how wobbly Midoriya is on his feet, you force him to let you carry him on your back since the other students both have injured arms. While he tries to refuse at first, eventually, the green-haired student agrees once he realizes you can't be persuaded. After all, while it's true that you're injured, you're still the best off out of the four of you. Todoroki starts dragging Stain across the ground, using the rope tied around him. even though Ida offers to do so instead. As the three of you head for the alley's exit, Midoriya asks, "Sensei, you said earlier that you have a headache now because of your quirk, right?" When you nod, he continues, "I thought you only get headaches when you try to explain your visions. Were you trying to warn Ida-kun about Stain?" Ida answers the question before you can explain yourself. "That's not it, Midoriya-kun. While I can't say for sure what exactly transpired at that moment, it looked to me like Sensei was using her quirk to predict the hero killer's movements." Todoroki tilts his head as he looks in your direction. "You can do that?" The corners of your lips tug upwards. "Yep. I just found out I could do it yesterday, so I can't say I completely understand it. But I am able to use my quirk to see a person's immediate future, so I know how they'll attack me before they do." Your smile grows when you hear Midoriya whisper, "That's so cool." Around that time, your group finally makes it to the street. Not long after you all exit the alleyway, Gran Torino suddenly arrives on the scene. When the elderly man catches sight of his intern, he immediately kicks Midoriya in the face. Apparently, your student disobeyed his supervisor's orders and didn't stay put after he was told to. While you can understand why the older man is upset, you think it's a little overkill to kick a kid when he's already down. That's why you can't stop yourself from speaking up. "Gran Torino-san, I understand your feelings, but don't kick my student when he's already injured. He's already been through enough tonight, so if you want to scold him, save it for later." Normally, you'd be more polite towards someone who's older than you, especially a pro hero who's as old as Gran Torino. However, these aren't normal circumstances. Honestly, considering everything you just went through, you think it's perfectly understandable for you to be a little less than cordial, especially towards someone who's trying to rough up your student, even though you know he has no bad intentions. Gran Torino raises an eyebrow at you, while Midoriya tries to reassure you that he's fine. After scrutinizing you for a few seconds, the pro hero tilts his head. "You must be the girl that Toshinori told me about. The one with a quirk like night eyes. What the hell are you doing out here?" Before you can explain yourself, you get distracted by the other pro heroes who suddenly arrive on the scene, saying that Endeavor told them to come here. They all freak out at the sight of the student's injuries and Stain's unconscious form. "Sensei." Turning to look behind you, you see Ida bowing his head. "I'm so sorry. Even though the events of your vision didn't end up occurring exactly as you foresaw it, that doesn't change the fact that if it were not for you, I would have been the one responsible for putting my friends' lives in danger. In the end, it still happened, and you were even hurt." Your expression softens. "I'm just glad all of you are all right. That's what matters most. Get down." Gran Torino yells out a warning, but before you can react, you suddenly feel your feet leave the ground. Immediately, you realize it's because something grabbed Midoriya because you feel him being pulled out of your hold. Without thinking, you tighten your grip on Midoriya in hopes of preventing him from being taken from you. Unfortunately, your efforts are in vain since you're not strong enough to overpower whatever grabbed him. It all happens within a matter of seconds. One moment, you're in the air, and then the next, you're sent crashing into the ground. Pain instantly invades your senses as your head bashes against the strong concrete below. As darkness begins to cloud your vision, you weakly mutter Midoriya's name as regret wells in your scent. The last thing you hear is Ida and Todoroki shouting your and Midoriya's names while Midoriya frantically calls out to you, "Sensei." After that, it all goes dark. When you finally regain consciousness, the strong scent of antiseptic invades your senses, reminding you of the times you've woken up in the infirmary at UA. Is that where you are now? As you try to piece together your scattered memories and find out what happened to you, you notice there's something wrapped around your head. A bandage. Did you hit your head? It's at that moment your memories of the fight with Stain come flashing to the forefront of your mind. Your eyes fly open, and you immediately regret it when the brightness of the overhead lights hits you. Wincing, you close your eyes and try to use the pillow underneath your head to block out the lights. But as soon as you try to move your head, it begins to throb painfully, making you groan. You grimace. "Great. Looks like my drawback is still in effect. Lucky me." "Sensei," as several voices call out to you, a hand drops over your eyes, helping to block out the light, and you sigh in relief. One of you, go dim the lights. Her eyes are still sensitive from using her quirk. Alright, considering what happened, it's likely you were taken along with your students to a nearby hospital, so it makes sense why you hear their voices. However, hearing Aizawa's voice leaves you feeling puzzled. How long has he been here? After a few seconds, the hand over your eyes moves away, and you can tell even with your eyes closed that the room isn't as bright now as it was before. So, reluctantly, you pry your eyelids apart to see what's going on. When your vision clears, you see Aizawa sitting at your bedside. In the room, there are 3 other beds where your students are all sitting, watching you closely. Ida has both of his arms wrapped up in slings while the other two have bandages around their arms and legs. Only you would get kidnapped while out buying groceries. Aizawa drawls. Sheepish, you give the older man a shaky smile. It wasn't intentional, I promise. If I had known the hero killer was wanting to chat, I would have stayed at the dorm. He frowns. I want to know why the hell he was after you when he supposedly only targets heroes. How did he even find out about you? With his help, you move into a seated position, using your pillows to prop yourself up. Before you can come up with a response, Ida replies in your stead. It's because she helped my brother. The hero killer found out about her during that encounter, and the villains gave him the information he wanted when my brother wouldn't. Todoroki tilts his head. That explains how he found out about her, but why did he decide to go after her if he only attacks heroes? Did he think that she'd interfere with more of his attacks on other heroes? Your brows furrow. No, he knew that my visions didn't work like that because the villains told him. I only had that vision about Ingenium because it was a precursor to what was to happen to you three. Actually, why did Stain target me? You wonder. He said the villains wanted me dead and asked him to kill me, but he said he hadn't decided yet if he wanted to do that. So, what? He was testing me to see whether or not I deserved to live. That doesn't make any sense. He doesn't go after civilians. Even if I helped Ingenium, he shouldn't care about what I do. That's when you get an idea, and your eyes grow large. What if he didn't know I wasn't a hero? What if the villains never told him? If they really wanted him to kill me, then they'd know that he only goes after those he calls fake heroes. Maybe they made him think I was a hero who only used my power for my own gain. It's not like he'd have any way to check to see if they were lying. Aizawa narrows his eyes. Considering you are employed at UA where everyone on staff is a hero, that would make sense. They could have just claimed you were a new hero, or that you were an underground hero who didn't like for your name to be known to the public. A deep frown appears on Ada's face. I cannot fathom why he would think you were anything but an amazing hero considering you put yourself in harm's way for my brother's sake. It's because of you that my brother can still walk. You are nothing like the fake heroes that he described. Even if your status as a civilian never changes, you'll always be seen as a hero in the eyes of the Ida family. You find yourself blushing at the praise. Never in your wildest dreams did you think anyone would ever refer to you as their hero. Sure, the girls call you that when you deal with Mainta, but this is different. Ida sincerely thinks that way because you played a role in saving his brother. Unsensei, grateful for the distraction, you direct your gaze to Midoriya. Yes, he bites his lip. If the fight with Stain hadn't occurred, wouldn't the pain from our current injuries have been inflicted on you? When you nod, the corners of Todoroki's lips dip downwards. Considering the hero killer knew that you took Ingenium's pain, he must have realized that you would take our pain too once we arrived to save you. Yet he still tried to kill you. That doesn't make any sense. You lace your fingers and clench your hands tightly together. Honestly, I don't think he was trying to kill me since, compared to you guys, I was strongly injured. He told me himself that he wasn't sure yet if he wanted to kill me, even though the League of Villains asked him to. I think he was testing me. Aizawa runs a hand through his hair. And somehow, you passed. That sounds about right, considering you came out of that fight with just some bruises and a knot on the back of your head. The worst injury you suffered was the head injury you got when the Namu picked you and Midoriya up and dropped you headfirst into the concrete. Your mind goes to a complete halt. Did you just say Namu? That's what grabbed us. That's when you're informed what all happened after you passed out. A flying Namu grabbed Midoriya off your back and tried to take off with him, briefly taking you along for the ride before you lost your grip on your student and fell to the strong ground below. Strangely enough, Stain broke out of his restraints and took down the creature to save Midoriya. Thankfully, the hero killer lost consciousness shortly after that, so he is in custody. Midoriya sheepishly rubs the back of his neck when you give him an incredulous look. You then press your face into your hands with a groan. Why? Why is it always you? It's like you have a second quirk that makes you a danger magnet. Maybe he does. It would make sense. I must admit even I am beginning to wonder. Maybe you should make an appointment with a quirk specialist after this, Midoriya-kun. The green-haired boy hangs his head at his friend's responses, unable to come up with a plausible reason to excuse the craziness that is his life. Aizawa snorts. I don't think any quirk specialist has the power to stop him from being such a problem child. At that moment, the door opens, revealing Gran Torino, a hero wearing a finned helmet, and a suited individual with a dog head. After introductions are made, you learn that the helmeted hero is the normal hero, Manuel, while the dog-headed man is Police Chief Tsuragami Kenji. Much to your irritation, the police chief scolds your students for the unlicensed use of their quirks, even though they had to in order to protect you and keep themselves alive. As much as you want to object, Aizawa is giving you a warning look. meaning you have to keep your mouth shut. That doesn't stop you from glaring at Surigami along with Todoroki. However, you're internally cheering him on when he makes his complaints while his classmates try to stop him. While Ida and Midoriya aren't very successful in calming Todoroki, he does finally settle down once Aizawa gets involved. You're relieved when Surigami reveals that as long as what happened doesn't get revealed to the public, the kids won't have to be punished. He even bows to show his thanks for what your students did, so you can't really bring yourself to be mad anymore. Surprisingly enough, the three men leave shortly after that without trying to question you for your role in that crazy fight. Maybe Aizawa already talked to them about you. Technically, Ida's side of the story should be nearly identical to yours since he overheard your conversation with Stain, so maybe they decided they didn't need to question you. When Aizawa chooses to remain in the room, you decide to find out how he ended up here. Aizawa-san, are you here because the police called the school about what happened? He slumps back into his seat with a tired sigh. Shinsu texted me saying you went for groceries and never came back. When he went to look for you, all he found were your groceries on the ground not far from the school gate. I had a feeling a villain was involved, especially when that same night Hasu got attacked by the league that was interested in you. The principal eventually found out what happened and sent me here. Your eyes widen. You had forgotten about Shinsu. Your disappearance probably scared the hell out of the poor kid. Does he know I'm all right? Should I call him? Aizawa hands you your phone, which miraculously survived the fight with Stain. He knows? He wanted to come along, but I convinced him to wait. I told him he could come when it's time to take you back to the dorm. Calling him wouldn't be a bad idea, though. Todoroki tilts his head curiously. Who's Shinsu? Ida's expression turns thoughtful. Didn't you fight someone with that name at the sports festival, Midoriya-kun? Midoriya quickly nods before explaining that Shinsu is a general department student interested in joining the heroics course. That's when Todoroki and Ida remember that the purple-haired boy declared war on the class before the festival. While they're chatting, you pull up Shinsu's name from your contacts and hit call. Within 2 rings, he answers. You are going to give me gray hair. How do you go from shopping for groceries to getting kidnapped by villains? Even though he can't see it, you start pouting. Hello to you too. Geez, you make it sound like I did this on purpose. I didn't ask to get kidnapped. I think Midoriya has a second quirk that makes him a danger magnet, and he has somehow affected me with it as well. Shinsu and Aizawa both snort, while Midoriya makes a choked noise. The witty look the green-haired boy gives you makes you want to laugh. You can tell he can't decide between feeling offended or guilty. That's rough, buddy. Let's hope it's not permanently active. Otherwise, you're screwed. Maybe Aizawa-sensei can use his quirk to make it stop. You grin as Ida tries to cheer up his green-haired classmate. Aizawa-san, Shinsu says you should try using your quirk so we won't be danger magnets anymore. Aizawa huffs in amusement. My quirk can only erase other quirks. It can't change the laws of reality. At this point, I don't think anything can help you too. After you pass along his message to Shinsu, the two of you share a laugh while Ida continues to try to console Midoriya in the background. Once you both have a good laugh, you and Shinsu spend the next few minutes chatting since you want to ensure he really is doing alright despite recent events. Plus, you want to find out what happened to your groceries since you'd hate for that food to go to waste, much to his exasperation. While Shinsu assures you that your groceries were recovered and brought to Heights Alliance, some nurses walk into the room to check on your students. Not wanting to disturb the nurses while they're questioning the younger boys, you decide to end the call a few minutes later after promising to keep Shinsu updated on your condition. Much to your surprise, just after you finish your phone call, Aizawa mutters, "While the kids are distracted, I want to ask you something." With a blink, you turn to look at the underground hero. Yes? Ida told me about the conversation you had with Stain. He said that Stain found out from the League of Villains about your drawback that causes you to take the pain of injuries you prevent. His serious gaze holds yours. How do you think they acquired that information? Your eyes grow large. That's right. Because you were so distracted about your perilous position last night, you never got the chance to properly consider that information you learned from Stain. How in the world did the League of Villains find out about your new drawback? Sure, that barrier quirk villain has information on you, but you're confident that you had never experienced that drawback until the Est attack because, up until that point, you had never prevented serious injuries before. So, how did they find out? A frown forms on your lips as you whisper, Roman 2 don't know. That barrier quirk villain shouldn't know about that drawback since I'm positive I had never experienced it until the Est attack. He shouldn't know about recent developments with my quirk. Realizing there's likely only one explanation that makes sense to Aizawa, you quickly add, I didn't tell him, I swear. I haven't told anyone aside from you and everyone at UA and Detective Tsukachi about my quirk. Regrettably, you have no proof to back up your words. All you can do is hope that Aizawa will trust them despite your suspicious background, even though he has every reason to have his doubts. Aizawa surprises you when he reaches over to pat your shoulder. I know. I'm not suspecting you. I know you wouldn't go around and carelessly reveal information about yourself, especially to people you deem dangerous who would use that information against you. As your shoulders slump with relief, Aizawa pulls his hand away from you. The reason I brought this subject up was because I wanted to see if you could think of any possible explanation aside from the only worrisome one I can think of. Your stomach churns uneasily. What was the explanation you thought of? He sighs. It's possible they have means of monitoring you, although it seems unlikely, considering U.S. high security. Another possibility is that they might have sneaked in some spies during the sports festival, considering how many people were there that day, which led to them seeing you in the condition you were in after the incident with Ingenium. Your eyes widen. That hadn't even crossed my mind, but that makes sense. Since they couldn't have already had that information, they had to have gathered it, and infiltrating the sports festival would have been a great way to do it since it probably wouldn't have been that strong to blend in with the crowd, especially with Kurogiri's warp quirk. Aizawa opens his mouth to reply but pauses for some reason. After a few minutes pass, he finally nods. It's not impossible, unfortunately, so for now, it's the explanation I'm leaning toward until we can gather more information. Before you can consider questioning his strange pause, the older man says, in any case, proceed with caution from here on out. While I don't think the villains will make a move anytime soon, it never hurts to be careful. After you give him a nod, he holds your gaze. No matter what happens, we will protect you. As long as you're at UA, you'll be safe. Surprise briefly crosses your features before being replaced with a warm smile. Yeah. Thank you, Aizawa-san. There are a lot of uncertainties in your life, but you know your safety isn't one of them. As long as you're with these kind people, you'll be just fine. Not long after your and Aizawa's conversation concludes, a nurse comes by to give you a checkup. After she finishes looking you over, she leaves the room like the other nurses did once they finished examining your students. That's also when Aizawa takes his leave, saying he'll be here to pick you up in the morning. Apparently, the doctors want you to stay the whole day because you had a seizure shortly after the ambulance arrived last night. They think it was a result of you overusing your quirk and receiving 2 hits to the head. Thankfully, despite the seizure, the rest of your body is miraculously in good shape aside from your head. The only lasting side effects you're dealing with are the ones you're used to thanks to your quirk. At least, this time around you don't have to worry about any leg-related injuries, so you'll be able to walk out of here on your own 2 feet. Sensei. When you turn to look at Midoriya, you see him frowning worriedly. On the day of the sports festival, you said you were in pain because of your quirk. Was that the drawback of helping Ingenium? No, all 3 students are watching you, with Ida wearing a guilty expression that has no right to be on his face. Yes, but it wasn't as bad as the Ust attack since Ingenium still ended up getting hurt. And it was by no means your fault, Ida. There was no way I could just sit back and watch your brother get hurt like that. The bespectacled boy deeply bows his head. Thank you for saving my brother. I cannot even begin to imagine the pain you went through to do so, but I am beyond grateful. I will never forget the kindness you've shown my family. I'm glad that you're both all right and that I was able to help out in the end. You moved to stand and reach out to ruffle his hair. I owe you my thanks as well. You came to my rescue despite knowing how dangerous the hero killer was. Thank you, Ida. Pulling your hand away, you give your other students a warm smile. I want to thank you too as well. You both put yourselves in danger to help us. While I was beyond worried, I was also extremely proud. You were all amazing. I just wish I could have done more to help. Your smile falls when you remember how powerless you were during that fight. All you were able to do was buy a few seconds before help arrived. You were useless after that. You weren't even able to prevent your student from being taken. If it weren't for Stain stopping that Namu, there's no telling what could have happened to Midoriya, and it would have been your fault for failing to protect him. You catch all of your students by surprise when you suddenly bow your head. I'm sorry. Even though I'm not a hero, I'm still your teacher, and I wasn't able to do anything for you. In the end, you had to do everything by yourselves. I was just a burden. I was too weak to protect you. That's not. Both Ida and Midoriya try to protest but pause when you raise your hand. Meanwhile, Todoroki is watching you with a frown but otherwise remains silent. Once they go quiet, you continue. It's the harsh truth I need to face. That's why from this point on I'm gonna do whatever it takes to get stronger. I know I can't compete with your other teachers, but I'll, at least, learn how to protect myself. And hopefully, with time, I'll be able to become someone you students can rely on. But you already are. You give Todoroki a surprised look, and he raises an eyebrow in response. When have we ever said you were unreliable? It's true you weren't able to help during the fight, but you help us in other ways. The class relies on you more than you think. All you can do is stare as Midoriya and Ada quickly nod their heads in agreement. The green-haired boy smiles. Todoroki-kun is right. Everyone knows we can come to you if we ever have a problem. We know you're always willing to listen to us and offer us help whenever we need it. Ida's expression matches Midoriya's. That is correct. Everyone in our class respects you a great deal. Sensei. Tears spring to your eyes. You didn't realize the students felt that way about you. Sure, they were always respectful, but you just figured it was because they were good kids. You had no idea your actions had such an effect on them. Both Ida and Midoriya notice your teary expression and begin to panic. Sensei. Todoroki tilts his head. Maybe one of you should hug her. That's what you're supposed to do when it looks like a girl is about to cry, right? A frown forms on Ida's lips. Unfortunately, I cannot do that with my arms like this, so I'll leave this to you. Midoriya-kun. Midoriya's eyes grow large. Eh? Me? Is that really okay? Shouldn't Todoroki-kun do it since it was his idea? The ice user immediately shakes his head. I'm not good at this kind of thing, so I think you'd be the better choice. Midoriya. Ida smiles encouragingly. You can do it, Midoriya-kun. Remember, a hero should always be able to comfort those in need. You can't stop yourself from laughing when you see how serious Ida and Todoroki are about this. Your amusement grows when Midoriya gains a determined look in his eye after his friend's pep talk. A large grin forms on your lips as you move to wipe your eyes before the tears can fall. You guys are the best. Thank you. Just by being yourselves you're able to cheer up those around you, as expected of 3 future pro heroes. The students' expressions brighten at your words, causing a pleasant warmth to take root in your Saint. There's nothing you love more than seeing those happy faces. You'll do whatever you can to protect them. That's why you'll get stronger. For their sake and your own. About an hour later, Tensei walks into the room, much to his brother's surprise and Midoriya's excitement. Nissan. Ingenium, from what you can tell, the turbo hero appears in good health. While he's currently wearing civilian clothes, there aren't any bandages in sight, so he must be fully recovered now. Immediately, the older man heads for his brother's bed and gives him a hug. You scared the CRP out me, Tenya. I can't believe you fought the hero killer despite me telling you to stay away from him. You quickly come to your student's aid. That was my fault. He only got involved because he was protecting me. I'll accept full responsibility. The younger Ida immediately shakes his head. No, Sensei, I need to take responsibility. I should have called for help when I had the chance. I admit I let my anger cloud my judgment when I heard what happened in your vision. Tensei softly chops him on the head. As long as you realize that, I can't really stay mad, especially since, in the end, this was actually all my fault. The hero killer wouldn't have found about Unsen if I kept my mouth shut. He turns to face you and bows his head. I'm sorry for causing you to be put in harm's way. Even though you went out of your way to help me and my brother, this still happened, and I accept full responsibility. As much as you want to deny his claims, you know nothing you say will change his mind, so you decide to go another route to lighten the atmosphere. I'll forgive you if you show me cute baby pictures of your brother. I need something to soothe my soul after having such a rough night. What? Ida's face is the definition of horrified while his older brother is grinning broadly. I can definitely do that. I always have pictures of Tenya on hand. The bespectacled boy gives his brother a betrayed look. You wouldn't. Tensei moves to take a seat in one of the chairs by your bedside and pulls out his phone. Sure, I would. I never pass up the chance to show off how cute you were as a kid, Tenya. You know that. After pulling up his picture gallery, he hands you the phone which you happily accept. Todoroki watches on curiously while Midoriya gives Ida a sympathetic look. You motion for the other students to join you, much to Ida's distress. While Midoriya hesitates, Todoroki immediately moves to sit on the edge of your bed, so he can look. Is that Ida dressed up as a robot? Ida makes a pained noise as he hangs his head. Why must you always show that picture to everyone? Nissan? His brother laughs. It's one of the best ones. It suited you perfectly since you've always liked to move your arms like a robot. Curiosity surpassing his concern for his embarrassed friend, Midoriya moves to join you and Todoroki as you all examine the pictures. Tensei has a whole album dedicated to his brother. It's honestly quite impressive. Midoriya makes an odd sound. Is that a hoodie based off the Ingenium costume design? Tensei grins proudly. Yep. Tenya wanted one and would wear it practically every day. Adorable, right? The 3 of you nod, even Todoroki. Although, you partly think it's because he's amused by Ida's over-the-top reactions. Nissan, how many pictures are you planning on showing them? Ida wearily asks. The older brother rubs his chin thoughtfully. I think the album they're currently looking through has about 100 pics. There are other albums, though, if they want to see more. In a flash, Ida is on his feet, giving his brother a horrified look. What? Why do you have so many? Think of all the memory storage you're using up for them. Tensei places a hand over his heart. Tenya, you're way more important to me than my phone's memory storage. Besides, that's why I bought the highest storage I could get. A pro hero's always gotta be prepared after all. You clutch your Saint. That's seriously adorable. Talk about dedication to one's family. You're a hero to us all, Ingenium. Todoroki nods solemnly. Truly an inspiration. Ida gives his classmate an annoyed look, making you laugh. I agree my brother is a wonderful hero, but this behavior should not be encouraged. Who keeps that many photos of their brother on their phone? Rising to his feet, Tensei pulls his brother into a headlock and ruffles his hair. Obviously, only the best brothers do that. Just wait until you become a pro hero. Then, you can see my scrapbook skills at work. I'll have a copy of every news article you appear in. Midoriya looks so touched by the older man's words. Honestly, so does Ida, but he's doing his best to still appear exasperated by his brother's antics. As you scroll up, you eventually find some baby pictures. Jackpot. Finally found the baby pictures. Todoroki leans in, wearing an interested expression. I want to see what a tiny Ida looks like. You snort as you pull up a picture of Tensei holding his baby brother, who's probably just a few months old. You coo at the sight. Awawa, look how adorable he is. So tiny. Ida stops struggling and just hangs his head. If this is how you decide to punish me, Nisan, you are crueler than I thought. I don't think my past actions warrant this level of embarrassment. His brother releases the chokehold, but keeps an arm around the bespectacled boy's shoulders. It's your sensei who asked, so I'd say this is her punishment for you more than mine. I just went along with it since it seemed like a fun idea. There's a pause, and then Todoroki hesitantly asks, will we have to offer baby pictures as well? The look of horror on Midoriya's face matches the expression Ida had on earlier. You can't help but laugh. Well, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing what you two looked like as babies, but it's not like you guys actually have any pictures on hand. Both boys appear relieved by the news while Ida frowns, probably because he's the only one suffering such a terrible fate. Still, it's not like there's anything that can be done, not unless their relatives come to visit and happen to have some pictures on hand. It's at that moment Midoriya Inko bursts through the door. Izuku! A large grin appears on your face as her son pales. Maybe hope isn't lost after all. The rest of the day is uneventful after Tensei and Inko leave. Seeing the baby pictures they both had on hand leaves you in a good mood, while Ida and Midoriya are the exact opposite. As promised, Aizawa and Shinsu come to pick you up the next morning when you're dismissed with a clean bill of health. The tests they performed on you yesterday came back with positive results, so you're good to go. Your students won't be getting out until later, so you exchange goodbyes with them before you leave. Thankfully, your eyes are now back to normal, and you no longer have a headache. Besides feeling a little sore, you're in pretty good condition considering what you went through. You also no longer have to wear a bandage on your head, so from an outsider's point of view, you look perfectly fine. On the train ride back, you sit in between Aizawa and Shinsu, and you can't help but feel like you have two bodyguards now. Technically, that is why the underground hero was assigned to watch over you in the first place, so it makes sense. Still, you're surprised by how alert the GD student looks, as if he expects something to go wrong before you all make it back to UA. According to Aizawa, he'll still be training Shinsu this week, but you're to sit out for the rest of the week because of the doctor's orders. You're also not allowed to use your quirk for sparring for at least a week since the doctor was worried about how the stress caused by your quirk affects your brain. Since the human brain isn't built to process that much information at such a fast pace, you overloaded it during your fight with Stain. It doesn't help that you were pushing yourself to your limit in order to keep up with Stain's rapid movements. That's why the drawback gets worse the longer you use your quirk. You convince Shinsu to play some games with you to pass the time since you'll be on the train for a while. He was the one to introduce Nico Atsum to you a while back, so you both compare how many cats you've both seen since he told you about it. In regards to the other games, the two of you go back and forth trying to beat each other's best score, no matter what kind of game you play. Rhythm games end up being your specialty while he's better at solving puzzles. Meanwhile, Aizawa seems content just snoozing in his seat. You have a feeling he's not really sleeping, though, since he's not the type to sleep in a public place like on a train. By the time you reach the train station closest to UA, your eyes are worn out from staring at your phone's screen too much. You're also a little on the nauseous side. Shinsu is also wearily rubbing his eyes, making you feel guilty about not stopping sooner. Thankfully, Aizawa notices this and doesn't force the purple-haired boy to immediately begin training once you're all back on campus. He decides training can start later in the afternoon, so after arriving at the dorm, the older man pulls his sleeping bag out and promptly passes out on the couch. Considering the look on his face, you expect Shinsu to do much the same and head straight for his room to take a nap. Instead, however, he hovers at your side, looking unsure about what he should do. It takes you a second to realize why he's hesitating. Your expression softens. It's all right if you want to go to your room and rest, Shinsu. I promise I won't leave without telling anyone. I have no plans on leaving the dorm anytime soon. Shinsu rubs the back of his neck. Nah, I don't really feel like going upstairs. I kinda doubt I'll be able to sleep anyway. Thanks to my insomnia, I'm always tired. I figure I'll just crash after training. A frown forms on your lips as you take in his exhausted expression. Did he get any sleep the last 2 nights? Knowing him, he probably spent the night of your kidnapping worrying about you. And he probably didn't get much rest last night either. That's when you get an idea. You know just what to do to help him relax. Okay, then you can help me do something fun instead. His wary look makes you grin. Even so, the GD student doesn't refuse, so you pull him along to the linen closet to grab the extra blankets and pillows provided by the school. He raises an eyebrow when you tell him what you'll both be doing. A pillow fort? Really? Last time I checked, we weren't in elementary school. You roll your eyes. Don't be ridiculous, Shinsu. Pillow forts are for all ages. Only really boring people don't see the appeal of them. You're not a boring person, are you? Shinsu snorts as he helps you rearrange the furniture in the living room, mindful of the still sleeping Aizawa. I've been called a lot of things but never boring, so I guess I can't refuse. The purple-haired boy winces when you slap him strong on the back. That's the spirit. Not wanting to wake up Aizawa, the two of you leave the couch he's on alone, and just work with the other couches and chairs. You lay out the sheets on the floor while Shinsu takes care of the pillows. Once all the blankets are set up for the fort's roof, everything is ready to go. Despite his earlier reaction, Shinsu is the first one to enter the fort while you make a quick detour to get some drinks and popcorn from the kitchen. Thankfully, it's all stocked up now, so you won't have to worry about grocery shopping for a while. Remote in hand, the GD student starts skimming through the channels to look for something to watch as he lies down on his stomach. You soon join him and mirror his position before digging into the bowl of popcorn that you prepared. When he can't find anything good, you tell him that the TV has Netflix, so he starts going through the list of available movies. Anything in particular you want to watch? You quietly hum as your eyes drift over the choices. Kinda in a cartoon mood. How about a Disney marathon? Shinsu huffs in amusement before selecting Atlantis, the Lost Empire. Fine. It doesn't really matter to me, and I do like the humor in this one. The sequel wasn't as good, though. Eh? Really? You tilt your head. I've always liked it. I thought it was really funny. He rolls his eyes. You're the type that always likes the sequels no matter how bad they are, aren't you? Your lips form into a pout. Shrek 2 and Scooby-Doo 2 are both amazing. Tell me I'm wrong. I dare you. There's a pause before the purple-haired nods in agreement. Okay, fair enough. Sometimes sequels are good. That doesn't apply to all of them, though. Snorting, you munch on some more popcorn. Duh. There are some movies that should never have had a sequel. People need to learn when to let sleeping dogs lie. Shinsu mutters something about stupid minions under his breath before returning his attention to the screen. You do the same, relaxing further against the pillows surrounding you. Time passes as you both go through one movie after another. You have a lot of fun, especially when you and Shinsu spend the majority of the time heckling Gaston when watching Beauty and the Beast. Somehow, the two of you ending up lying side by side, even though there's plenty of room in the fort for you both to have your own space. Still, you can't say you mind too much. It's honestly really nice as it constantly reminds you that you have someone to watch these movies with now, unlike when you were a kid all on your own. It's during the third movie that Shinsu finally dozes off. You could tell the purple-haired boy was tired, but he did his best to remain awake. In the end, the lure of the incredibly soft pillow fort was just too strong for him to resist for long, just as you planned. Smiling, you reach for a nearby blanket and pull it over the sleeping student. Considering the lack of movement from the couch outside of the pillow fort, you believe Aizawa is still asleep. Hopefully, he'll stay that way a little longer so Shinsu can have a quick nap. Figuring the GD student might wake if you move too much, you remain beside him as you reach for your phone so you can take a quick picture of him. Moments like this need to be memorialized. When Shinsu becomes an awesome hero, you'll pull it out to remind him what a cute student he was. You need to start gathering ammunition now, so you'll be ready to embarrass him in the future. After all, that's what teachers are for, right? Even though you hadn't planned on it, you end up falling asleep like Shinsu shortly after the movie ends. Despite Aizawa saying training would resume in the afternoon, you and Shinsu don't wake up until after 1. Most likely, the underground hero woke up, saw you both sleeping, and decided to leave you two be. Of course, this suggests he went back to sleep as well, which you're sure he had no problem with. It's your growling stomach that eventually wakes you. You groggily rub your eyes before checking your phone to see what time it is. Realizing you all slept through lunch, you crawl out of the pillow fort to head for the kitchen. Unsurprisingly, Shinsu wakes up as soon as you move. His sleepy expression as he looks around in confusion is really adorable. You stretch your arms high above your head as you go prepare lunch, all the while thinking how amazing naps in pillow forts are. Aizawa doesn't so much as stir from his position on the couch, so that means you'll have to wake him up once lunch is ready. You decide to make something simple for lunch, just in case the older man still wants Shinsu to train today. Around the time you finish cooking, Shinsu ambles into the kitchen, yawning into his hand. You get him to help you move the food to the table while you go wake up Aizawa. Thankfully, the underground hero doesn't put up much of a struggle, so it's not long before the three of you are seated in the dining area, eating lunch. As expected, as soon as you all finish, Aizawa tells Shinsu to get changed into his gym clothes since they'll be training as soon as he's ready to go. Instead of telling you to remain at the dorm, the older man instructs you to come along, claiming watching them fight should be just as educational as participating in the fights yourself. So, that's how you spend the rest of your Friday. All in all, it's an uneventful day, but you don't mind. After all, considering recent events, days like this are definitely what the doctor ordered. Definitely. Saturday ends up the same as Monday and Tuesday with training all throughout the day. When Sunday rolls around, the guys only do a little training in the morning before Aizawa sends Shinsu home to spend the rest of the day resting. Since the underground hero will be busy with his students most of the time, he has written out a training regimen that he wants the general department student to follow, starting on Monday. He wants you to join Shinsu in his training as well, but he asks you to not overdo it since you did recently get discharged from the hospital. While the two of you are allowed to spar, Aizawa says he doesn't want you using your quirk to fight unless he's around to supervise. You agree since you honestly don't want to use your quirk unless you have to anyway, even though you know you need to practice with it. There's also the fact that the doctor asked you not to use it for the next week, so you won't be using that ability anytime soon anyway. It's not long after Shinsu heads home that Todoroki arrives back from his internship. This catches you by surprise since you expected your student to be getting back later like Uraraka. Did Endeavor actually let his son come back early? Just as Todoroki arrives, Aizawa leaves to go to work. As expected, he tells you right before he goes that he doesn't want you leaving campus on your own from now on. Of course, you have no plans of ever doing that again after what happened the last time you did. Taking in the sight of the pillow fort in the living room, Todoroki points at it. What is that? You grin. A pillow fort. Shinsu and I made it the other day, and I didn't have the heart to take it down. Besides, I wanted to show it to you and Uraraka. He tilts his head curiously. This is my first time seeing one. What is it for? Grabbing his hand, you pull him toward the entrance to show him what's inside. It's basically just a fun way to relax. It's super comfortable and a great place to watch movies or play games. I highly recommend it. After you release his hand, Todoroki gains a thoughtful look. I have an idea. Just give me a few minutes to drop my stuff off at my room. Curious, you nod your head and move to make yourself comfortable in the pillow fort as you wait to see what he has planned. About 10 minutes later, the stoic boy arrives carrying 2 Nintendo 3DS consoles, causing your eyes to grow large with shock. When he first moved into the dorm, he told you he had never played a video game before, so that obviously meant he didn't own any. So, how in the world did he end up with 2 handheld gaming systems? After taking a seat in the pillow fort, Todoroki hands you the white one while he keeps the blue one. You said this was the best place for gaming, right? All you can do is stare. Todoroki, since when have you owned 2 of these? Since this morning, he replies nonchalantly. After you brought up the Pokemon games, I wanted to give them a try. I got one for you too since you said you've never played one either. You gape at his casual response. So, you're telling me you just bought 2 3DS consoles and 2 games? Aren't they expensive? The corners of his lips tug slightly upwards. I use the old man's card. Considering how much money he has, he won't notice the little amount I spent on these. A surprised laugh escapes you before you erupt into a fit of giggles. Oh man, this is hilarious. He seriously spent the number 2 hero's money on some video games. Pokemon, no less. After you wipe away the tears of mirth gathering in your eyes, you reach over to gently ruffle your student's hair. You are a genius. I am so incredibly proud of you. If you didn't know any better, you'd say the stoic boy purposefully leaned into your hand after you laid it on his head, but maybe you're just imagining it. Once you remove your hand, you start examining the 3 Deciseicons in your hands. Is it really okay for you to buy me one too? If you want, I can pay you back. Todoroki shakes his head. No, you don't have to. By buying you one, I got to spend more of his money on something he wouldn't approve of, so it's just as beneficial for me as it is for you. Besides, if we play together, we'll be able to figure out how to beat this game by collaborating. You smile in amusement. I hear these games take a long time to beat. Even after you go through the whole story, there are still plenty of things to do like catching all the Pokémon or doing the bonus events. His expression turns serious. Challenge accepted. I will catch them all. Cackling, you turn on the 3 Deciseicons. This is going to be so much fun. And that's how Uraraka finds the two of you several hours later when she arrives back at the dorm. Unsurprisingly, she loves the pillow fort and thinks it's hilarious that Todoroki is so serious about Pokémon. After she puts her things away, the brunette joins you both in the fort, so she can watch you and Todoroki play. Not wanting her to be left out of the fun, you take turns with her, so she can also play the game, which she ends up enjoying just as much as you and her classmate. When Todoroki offers to buy her the game and console too, Uraraka freaks out, saying she doesn't want that kind of money spent on her. While he appears confused, you understand her feelings since it is strange to receive such a grand gift, especially for someone with finances like hers. Thankfully, Todoroki doesn't push the matter, so you all continue playing, with Uraraka taking turns sharing with you and Todoroki. It's because of her that both of you have at least one pink Pokémon in your teams. Another fun thing you guys do is compare Pokémon with their classmates, saying who looks the most like which Pokémon. Obviously, Kaminari is Pikachu. For your starter, you picked Froakie, which reminds you of Asui. After several minutes of deliberation, Todoroki chose the fire starter, Fennekin. Much to your amusement, every time he encounters a rock Pokémon, Todoroki says it reminds him of Kirishima. Meanwhile, Uraraka does that with every bird Pokémon, saying they're like Takoyami. Personally, you think the Avon-headed student would like Chandelure since it seems to go along with his aesthetic. Both students agree that Bunnelby would be good for Midoriya because of how his original hero costume had bunny ears on it. You almost die laughing when Uraraka claims Bakugo is like Corphish because they're both crabby. You think Mienshao would be a good pick for Ojiro since it's a fighting type and has a tail like him. For some reason, Todoroki picks Abra for Hagakure. When you and Uraraka ask him why, he says it's because Abra always keeps disappearing thanks to its teleport attack. The 3 of you go back and forth sharing your ideas as you play. Because you're all having so much fun, the 3 of you end up spending the whole evening together, playing video games. When Uraraka suggests having a sleepover in the pillow fort after you all eat dinner, you and Todoroki quickly agree. As a result, you and your students end up staying up later than you all should, but you honestly have no regrets. Because time spent with your students is way more important to you than a few hours of lost sleep. And that's something that won't ever change. As expected, on everyone's first day back from their week of fieldwork, homeroom is especially lively. The girls are all exchanging stories while Uraraka has somehow entered into a strange trance as she reflects on her training with Gunhead. Kirishima and Siro are laughing at Bakugo's new hairstyle, courtesy of Best Jeanist, and you can't really blame them since it does look hilarious on him. Due to your lack of sleep, you end up zoning out through most of the conversations currently transpiring. However, when Kaminari brings up the video about the hero killer, claiming how cool Stain was, you react. Everyone freezes when you abruptly stand and pull out your water gun. You aim it at a scared Kaminari as you don a frightening grin. What was that, Kaminari? I think I misheard you. You weren't actually complimenting the hero killer, were you? He immediately starts shaking his head frantically as Maita tries to slump in his seat to avoid your glare. No, sensei. Of course not. He's the exact opposite of cool. Your expression relaxes as your grin loses its edge. I thought so. I'm glad it was just a misunderstanding. Kaminari's relief is obvious as he sighs. That was a close one. I didn't realize I had stepped on a landmine there, Todoroki nods. It was an understandable mistake. After all, not everyone knows that Sensei was attacked by the hero killer last week. There's a long pause before the classroom abruptly erupts into a cacophony of noise. What? The news never said anything about Unsensei being there. Sensei, are you all right? Todoroki-kun, we weren't supposed to talk about that. Oh yeah, sorry. Several voices start yelling at you at once, and you have to hold up your arms in an attempt to calm them. That's when Ida decides to intervene. That is enough. I understand your confusion, but you must calm down. Yelling at Sensei will not help anything. If you want to ask her something, calmly raise your hand, and let her call on you in an orderly fashion. Thankfully, that does the trick, and everyone quiets down. before anyone can start raising their hands like he suggested. However, you decide to tell them what you can. Yes, I was involved that night. The hero killer decided he wanted to chat with me, so the League of Villains kidnapped me and dropped me off in Hasu. It was not a fun night. Minus the three who already know the story, the whole class just stares at you with wide eyes as you calmly tell them about being kidnapped. When Asui raises her hand, you gesture for her to speak. She taps her chin thoughtfully. I thought the hero killer only went after heroes. Ribbit. Why did he go after you, Sensei? Before you can reply, Ida raises his hand, and you realize he wishes to tell this part of the story. Nodding to show it's fine, he explains, it was because of Unsensei that my brother survived his encounter with the hero killer, with as little injuries as he did. She warned him ahead of time about the attack. Unfortunately, my brother sustained a head injury which led to him mentioning her during his battle with Stain. That's how we found out about her and took an interest. Uraraka stares at you with large eyes as she grins excitedly. That's amazing, Sensei. You not only helped us with the Usji but also helped save Ingenium. Midoriya nods as he smiles. Stain attacked her mistakenly thinking she was a pro-hero, but considering what she has done lately, it's really not that surprising that he'd think that way. You find yourself flushing. Placing your hands on your warm cheeks, you reply, Awa, now that's not fair. If you say something so sweet while making such a cute expression, I might melt. Midoriya. He turns a bright red and starts sputtering while his classmates laugh at his reaction. It seems no matter how many times you compliment him, he still can't really handle it. Unfortunately, your good mood doesn't last for long thanks to your quirk suddenly activating, giving you the first vision you've had since Friday, which is when you foresaw All Might telling Midoriya the full story of Ofa and the villain All for One. This vision is much shorter in comparison. It's actually very similar to the last one you had about Minta. The only difference is that Minta finds a hole in the boys' changing room that would allow the guys to see inside the girls' changing room. Who in the hell made that? When the vision ends, you see that the class has gone quiet as they await your reaction to your latest vision. They all tense up with a familiar, scary grin appears on your face. Minta. Minta immediately tries to make a run for it, but Todoroki calmly freezes the floor using his right foot, preventing the other students' escape. The grape-haired boy gives his classmate a betrayed look, but the stoic student is completely unaffected. You crack your knuckles menacingly. Minta, you remember what I said about peeking on the girls while they're changing, don't you? Jiru scowls in irritation. Again? Seriously? Hagakure huffs. You're awful, Minta-kun. It's strong to tell if Minta's shaking is from the ice or his fear, probably both. But I wouldn't do that again, not after last time, Kaminari tilts his head. That's true. I don't think he'd use the same approach after how you reacted last time. Scowling, you approach the grape-haired student and start roughly pulling on his cheeks. Apparently, there's a hole in the wall that allows you to look from one changing room into another. He'll find that later on today and take advantage of it. When Minta's eyes widen with excitement, you immediately pull stronger, making him yelp from the pain. Don't look so excited. I'm half tempted to ask Siro to tape you to the ceiling for the full duration of homeroom, or make you stand outside in the hallway and carry some buckets of water. Siro rubs his chin thoughtfully. I don't think Aizawa-sensei would mind the tape to the ceiling idea since Minta would still technically be in here for class. Noticing Minta's horrified look, you grin. All right, let's do it. Siro, if you'd be so kind. The tape user nods with a large grin as Todoroki uses his fire to melt the ice. As soon as he's free, Minta tries to run for safety, but Asui's tongue wraps around him before he can get very far. Once the grape-haired student has been captured, Siro shoots out some tape to wrap his classmate up before sticking him on the ceiling. The majority of the girls are cheering excitedly while Yaoyorozu is rubbing her chin thoughtfully. I'll need to make something to seal that hole in the wall the changing rooms share before anyone else finds it. When Ida looks like he wants to intervene, you declare that Minta won't learn unless he's punished. Once you tell him such behavior isn't acceptable for heroes, the bespectacled boy finally acquiesces before returning to his desk. That's when Aizawa enters the classroom. He takes one look at the taped-up Minta before promptly rolling his eyes. At this point, the underground hero doesn't bother asking anymore. All in all, it's just another normal homeroom at UA, at least for Class 1 anyway. After homeroom eventually comes to an end, you have Minta released, even though the majority of his female classmates had suggested leaving him up there longer, much to his great distress. Honestly, you can't say you dislike the idea too much since there's nothing more you dislike than perverts taking advantage of innocent girls. However, in the end, you decided to have mercy on Minta once he promised to never peek on the girls while they're changing again, even though you have no way of ensuring that he keeps his promise. As he's being freed from Siro's tape, Minta grumbles, "This is the worst. At least when I'm punished while I'm getting caught in the act, that usually means I got something out of the deal. It sucks being stopped before I can even do anything. So not fair. While Ciro and several other students, who overheard Minta's complaint, give him exasperated looks, you find yourself frowning. Strangely enough, your reaction isn't because you're upset over what Minta said. It's because it reminds you of a situation you found yourself in last week. Quickly, you make your way over to the gray-haired boy who promptly stiffens when he notices your approach. Before Minta can stutter out an excuse, you grab him by the hand. Let's have a talk in the hallway. Minta, I promise to make it quick, so you won't be late for your next class. He starts to nervously sweat. Sure. With that, the two of you and Aizawa exit the room while the rest of class Wana silently watches on. Rather than stick around to see what you intend to do, Aizawa tells you that he'll be in the teacher's lounge if you need him before taking his leave. Once the two of you are alone, you crouch down in front of an obviously nervous Minta, so the two of you can be an eye level. Minta, it was never my intention to be unfair. I hope you know that. Your student blinks. Huh. Earlier, you were grumbling about how I punished you before you did anything. You remind him. As his expression grows nervous, you run a hand through your hair. When you said that, I found myself thinking about someone I met who wanted to punish another person for something they would have done if I hadn't intervened. Not wanting Minta to find out about how Ida sought vengeance for his brother in your vision, you remain vague as you recount your encounter with Stain. I was upset that he seriously wanted to hurt another person when they hadn't technically done anything wrong. Your eyes meet his wide ones. Which is exactly what I've done with you. Even though I warned you on the first day we met that I would hold you responsible for your actions, whether I witnessed them in person or in my visions, I think I went too far with today's punishment because I let my anger get the better of me. You bow your head. For that, I apologize. I'm sorry for not handling things better. Minta just stares at you, completely dumbfounded. Sensei, after raising your head, you wag a finger at him. Now, that's not to say I'll let you get away with your usual misconduct from now on. I'm just saying that I'll stick to scolding you if I ever receive another vision of you harassing your female classmates, since I can't just sit back and wait for you to commit the misdeeds in person. That wouldn't be fair to the girls. And maybe I'll do some cheek pinching too. You add as an afterthought. Although, I'll try to reserve those kinds of punishments for the times I actually catch you in the act, if that should ever happen. He winces. Alrighty, you'll make sure it doesn't come to that. Even though it seems unlikely that he'll really oblige, you request. Please be on your best behavior around the girls from now on. Minta, I understand you love girls, but I think you love them a little too much. Judging from his expression, Minta clearly doesn't agree, but rather than say as much, he just gives you a nod. Knowing that's as good as an answer as you're going to get, you don't press the matter and instead tell him that he can return to the classroom. Much to your surprise, rather than take advantage of this opportunity to take refuge in the classroom, Minta instead hesitates as he takes turns looking at you and the doorway. Just as you're about to question him about his strange behavior, Minta remarks, Hey, Sensei, I have a question. It's about something I've heard my classmates say in the past. When you gesture for him to continue, he quietly asks, Am I your least favorite student? Because of how I treat the girls. Your eyes widen. Of all the things he could ask, this question definitely wasn't what you were expecting. Once you get over your surprise, you reach over to rest a hand against his shoulder. I don't have any favorite or least favorite students, Minta. It's true your actions drive me crazy, but I don't actually hate you or anything of the like. I'm sorry if I ever gave you that impression. The corners of your lips curve upwards. All of my students are equally important to me. I treasure all of you. Relief briefly crosses his features before a bright grin forms on his lips. I knew it. I knew those guys were wrong. After all, no one gives stickers and candy to people they dislike, or helps them when they have homework questions. Technically, that's what you consider a normal part of your job, but you suppose it would be more difficult for you to do those things if you truly dislike the boy. You smile grows. My usual smiles are never forced around you, Minta, I promise. I do enjoy your company when you're not causing trouble. He beams, I enjoy your company too. Sensei, you're really cool when you're not terrifying. As soon as he realizes what he just said, Minta panics, W8, With a snort, you rise to your feet. It's fine, Minta. I understand what you meant. Still, you probably should return to the classroom before you say something else you might regret. Minta quickly nods as he hurries toward the door. Alright, see ya later, Sensei. After the gray-haired boy makes his hasty retreat, you begin heading for the teacher's lounge and soon find yourself lost in thought. I had never considered Minta thinking I would feel that way about him, but I really should have, considering how upset I get when I have visions about his usual misdeeds. Your hands clench into fists. I'll have to do better about controlling my temper. A proper teacher shouldn't act in a way that would lead to her students coming to such a horrible misunderstanding. A sigh escapes you. It won't be easy, though, since the subject of perverts always sets me off really quickly for some reason. It's like a SWCH gets flipped in my brain, and reason just flies out of my brain as I act without thinking. Obviously, you must have had a bad experience with those kinds of people in the past. That's the only reason to explain such an extreme reaction. Thankfully, those are memories that you have lost, and you hope you won't ever regain them. Because some things are better left in the past, the rest of the day passes pretty uneventfully. You spend the lunch break with Aizawa, present Mike, and Midnight, and during the afternoon, you somehow get roped into helping the latter two with grading homework for their classes during your free time. During the last class of the day, Aizawa announces the summer training camp. Rather than have the summer off, the two hero classes will work on training their quirks. While he tells the class that only those who pass the final exam can go on the trip, you know for a fact that everyone will go since everyone needs the training. Apparently, this is another of his logical ruses. Everyone appears really excited about the camp as they start reeling off the fun stuff they can do. Unfortunately, you don't think it'll be that sort of camp. Mineta looks like he wants to say something as well, but after a quick glance in your direction, he quickly shuts up, making you wary of what he could be excited about. When the final bell rings, everyone heads home. You tell your Araka and Todoroki they can go on without you since